Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bikepack Adventures Podcast. I want to wish everybody a happy Canadian Thanksgiving. That happens to be this weekend. I just got back not too long ago from a 5-kilometer charity run with my wife, and it was really fun. We ran it together, and I'm super proud of her for pushing it the entire way, never stopping to run right until the finish line. We hadn't trained very much for the run, so it was a bit of a challenge, but yeah, it was really nice to do this together, and I might have been able to go a little bit faster myself, but it wouldn't have been that significant, so it was super fun to do it as a couple. Although this episode was recorded a couple of weeks ago, I had a few things delaying my ability to get it ready until now. That's why I put together an unpacking bikepacking episode with Carl last week, as they're just much easier to manage, and here we are, ready to rock and roll. If you've been enjoying the podcast, there are several ways you can help with its continued growth and sustainability. Please consider sharing interviews and episodes you found particularly interesting with friends and family, as the entire goal of the podcast is to grow the bikepacking community, and you never really know who might be interested in getting out there and trying it out. You can also leave Apple or Google reviews, as this helps with analytics and exposure through search engines. And lastly, if you're in a position to contribute to its continued growth, I'd really appreciate you considering to join as a Patreon sustaining partner. You can do this by going to patreon.com/bikepackadventures. Your continued support is what really helps keep this podcast going. Patreons do get early access to episodes and also get to hear about what we talk about off the map, essentially getting access to the uncut versions of the episodes so you can hear what we talk about before and after it's recorded. Now, on to the episode intro. In this episode of the Bikepack Adventures Podcast, Dominick Menard stopped over on the way to a gravel race in the region. We spent a couple hours talking about his journey towards bikepacking, having grown up as a competitive mountain biker and working his way up to riding on the pro circuit. Dominick has a ton of biking experience. Not too long after diving headfirst into the nomadic lifestyle of van life, Dominick got the crazy idea to start a YouTube series called Bon Velo, geared at sharing the amazing mountain biking of Quebec with everyone online. After 2 seasons of doing this, his call to adventure was getting louder, and on a whim, he decided he would cycle to Patagonia. And throughout our conversation, we went deep into his journey south, talking extensively on gear, bikes, mindset, and much, much more. All right, everyone, before we jump into today's interview with Dominick Menard, I just wanted to show you a quick little session I've recorded with Eric from Redshift. They've been sponsoring the podcast since 2021, and they have a lot of cool new things going on. So I thought we'd have them on the show to kind of let us know what's happening. So Eric, great to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks so much. It's fun to do a little quick chat every now and then.
Yeah. And now you get to see the whole studio in its grandness.
The studio looks great. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thanks. So yeah, let's keep this very brief. But you guys recently went from having the Shockstop C Post and the Pro C Post, and now you have 3. And even I was going like, wait, what's changed? What's happened? So I thought maybe you could tell us about that.
Yeah. So we kind of had this in the back of our mind for a while. But we've had our original C Post, right? It was purely spring based, and it was really great. It's really reactive. It's really plush. Probably the best thing that, for really rough terrain. It's still kind of the go-to for that. But we released the Pro model, a little while ago, and people really liked the fact that it was really in the background, like really transparent, like really heavily damped. And so we thought, there's something in between here that makes sense, which is something that has the travel of the original one, but has that damping. And so that's what the Pro Endurance is all about. It's kind of like, fitting in there a little bit. And so I think it's the one that I recommend most people ride on gravel, where they're not doing like sort of extreme single track type of riding, because it's got the travel, it's got the damping. So it's not very noticeable really. But it's really getting the job done. And then it's sort of the Pro Race model is more like a little bit of travel, heavily damped, very much more of like a racing type of post. And so that's kind of like where we might differentiate that. So we tried to have something that fits the different styles of what people want to ride.
Okay. The endurance suspension C Post is kind of the original model, right? It's just you've added endurance into the name just to kind of show you what they're meant to do,
we tried to sort of differentiate a little bit with the names. The names might overlap a bit more than I was thinking about when we were going through that process. So it can be a little confusing, but
Yeah. And then, so is the pro race kind of what the pro was before? Like, is there a spring as well in that, or is it just dampeners?
that it started out as just elastomers, but now we
Yeah.
ship it with springs and elastomers, so you can run
Oh,
it both
okay.
ways.
Oh, you
So
can actually choose, yeah?
yeah, so you can choose. And so honestly, what we found was people that were doing like, road riding, they wanted the sort of like double elastomer setup. And then people that were doing a little bit more gravel wanted to have that spring in there so they could get a bit more of that kind of quick movement. So it's now very much you can set it up however you want. And really the big differentiation there is just the shorter travel makes it even more transparent. And so you put that on, you really won't know that it's there, frankly. And it just
Yeah.
kind of does the job in the background.
Yeah, I've been running that one on my bike Friday with the 20-inch wheels just as an all-rounder because it's, 20 inches, you tend to take a bit more of a beating, and it does a great job of smoothing things out. It's kind of like install it and forget it because I don't have to worry about adjusting for weight or anything. It's just providing a little bit of cush when I inevitably hit lots and lots of things.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's I think we've found that the pro endurance is probably the one that's most popular now. I think I think people that are riding gravel, they're looking for that sort of longer travel setup, and that seems to be the one that is kind of coming out as the thing that people that kind of the go-to. And then when people are riding really rough stuff, we kind of, suggest they try the endurance one. And then the endurance boat is actually really good for stuff like e-bikes, and commute, just because, you're not as worried about like the thing moving around. So you don't really need to tune it that well for that. Just let it soak everything up.
right, right. And yeah, that's really cool. It's interesting to see how things evolve, right? As you guys mature as a company, things, ideas will pop into how can we address this need. And so just to clarify again, the Endurance and the Endurance Pro have 30 mil suspension, and the Pro is 20.
Yep. 35 and then
Pro
20.
racing, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 35, yeah.
35. Yeah.
Nice. All right, cool. And you've also recently released a whole bunch of new handlebars, and of course the top shelf bar bag as well. Do you want to just touch on those?
Yeah.
well?
I mean, it's kind of in keeping with the same theme. I think as we've gone on, I mean, we get a lot of feedback, right? From customers and from people that are interested and that have ridden and tested our stuff. And we try to listen to that as much as possible. And I think that's where the C post came from. I mean, was the feedback we were getting from, from people. And it's the same thing with the handlebar. So, we've had our kitchen sink handlebar and our top shelf handlebar. Those were, I would say, more gravel focused. They had 25 degrees of flare. They had back sweep. They had the rises that we built in, and they were wide, right? And so we got a lot of feedback saying, hey, can you guys do something more narrow? Can you do something more road focused? And so that's what we did. We went out and we took those bars and we said, okay, we're going to add a 41 centimeter, to each of them to be, accommodate people that want something that's more narrow. And then we also went ahead and made, so that it's 41 across the board. And then we now have a whole new version in every width for both bars, which we call low flare. And basically it's a 10 degree flare instead of 25. And so the 10 degree, it's essentially vertical. And so like I call it more of like a road style or more of a traditional drop bar style. It has a little bit of flare just because there's a real ergonomic advantage to having a little bit in there. But I think anyone that's been riding a road bar, like they'll find it to be perfectly familiar, but it'll actually be like just a little bit more comfortable. But if if you're not looking for that extreme flare, this is, sort of the alternative. We had a lot of people, I think a lot of road riders that were really interested in the top shelf. And so I think that's kind of where a lot of that feedback came from. And it was pretty overwhelming. So we were like, oh, we better get on this and go ahead and do it because this is obviously something that people are looking for.
Yeah. And tell us about the top shelf bar then as well.
Yeah. So we just, the bag, I think is what I mean. Yeah. So we just, we teased this at Sea Otter last year. But essentially the cool thing about the top shelf handlebar is, right, it's got, the extreme ride and it has essentially a double bar. So there's like a crossbar at the top and then, there's essentially a loop that is what gives it its ride. And so as soon as we made the bar, we realized that it was like the perfect place to put it, because you can now attach to both those crossbars, and everyone has experienced putting bag on the handlebar and having it swing around, having it hit the cables, put any weight in it, it's moving all over the place. And so it was kind of this cool opportunity for us to make a bag that had a little bit of structure that attached in those 4 points. And then it created essentially like a super stable bag. So it's a rigid bag, but it's actually soft. And so that's this like super nice thing we were able to put together. So we kind of had that whole plan. And so we built a bag, and the kitchen sink handlebars, we had a bag that goes with that for a while. People really like that. So we thought, oh, this is perfect. Let's make something here. And, so far, I think people are pretty psyched about it. The size is a little bit bigger, so it carries a little bit more, and it accommodates the same kind of features we did before. It's got the belt. We make this a magnetic flap. And so it's like you can do single hand access. We built a dedicated phone pocket into it this time, which is something I really wanted for myself. And then we have the same computer mount piece that we have on the other bag. So when you put the bag on, you can take your out front mount off, and the computer can go right on top of the bag, which is a really like convenient place to put it.
Yeah, it's super, super convenient. And it's a great design, just the way it kind of Tetrises itself together. And then when you screw the cover on, it's not coming out, you're not going to, there's no way it's going to fall off.
Yeah, I think that people really like that aspect of it. So it's funny how convenience goes such a long way. And I think that's a big theme. It's like we're trying to make something that's convenient. I mean, everyone rides with their phone in their jersey, right? And so like, why do we have to do, let's try to do something different. The same thing. It's like the computer, why have all this extra stuff if you can integrate it into one thing? So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, I won't keep you. It was great to have a chance to catch up real quick and to just kind of get a sense of what is out there right now with Redshift.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's awesome to catch up. And I'm looking forward to listening to the next interview too. So I'm going to jump on and do that.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Welcome back to the Bikepack Adventures Podcast. And Dominick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll do the intro after.
Sure.
How are things?
I'm doing super good. Summer went by quick though.
Yeah.
Because we met at the Bikepacking Summit the last time. That was in May.
Yeah.
And here we are in end of September.
Like June. 4 months later.
4 months later. Yeah.
You've been busy. Yeah. So it's super good to have you here. I'm so proud, like happy that you were at the summit and stuff. And I do have your jersey and your shirt here that you couldn't fit on your bike at the summit. So I did hold on to it.
Yeah, because I rode from Bromont to Wakefield for the summit.
And then you got to ride back.
Yeah.
But my wife had taken off with the clothes. So Dominick, like let's I usually start off by asking about the person. So tell us a bit about yourself. I know you have a massive life of biking. So in 30 minutes or less.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm French, as you may notice by my accent. Basically from Quebec. I call my base camp Bromont because my roots are downhill mountain biking. So I started going to Bromont back in 97, 96. And then, just raced downhill for over 10 years. And eventually I moved to a sales rep job in the bicycle industry. So I was selling HLC, which is a bike distributor, but also Cycle Da Vinci, who I've been partnered with since like 2004, basically.
20 years.
We go way back. There's a few years where on and off, but I've always come back. Always knocked at the door and they reopened. But
because when you're racing too, right? Like things just happen and things
sponsorship
sometimes, right?
Yeah. You have it like a year like usually it's a 1 year contract, and then I remember the downhill program was abolished back in 2006. I went from Vinci to Giant.
This is like the national program, or like okay,
national program, and and did that for over 10 years. Then moved to a sales rep job, and then I bought a van following a backpacking trip, not a bikepacking trip. This came later, but I bought a van, sold everything, went back to nomad life.
So the van thing, that was just an idea, and you just picked something up and said, I'm going to live in a van.
Well, being a sales rep, I was always on the road.
Yeah.
And before that, I had a minivan when I was racing. So I was always used to be like on the road, and I loved it. But never like kind of realize how like a sprinter van fully built inside could be so comfortable,
Yeah.
and and it made sense as a sales rep. And when I went to that backpacking trip in Central America, I came back and I needed something needed to change.
Okay.
I didn't want to like leave my job, but I missed like the adventure part of
Mm.
the thing. Because for over 10 years, I've been racing, traveling, living in Victoria, Vancouver Island. And so I kind of missed that, but I made a lot of sacrifices back then, like
Mm.
money wise and socially. And now that I was working regularly as a sales rep, I don't know, I didn't want to leave everything behind. So buying a van kind of gave me a bit of adventure
And a little bit of
spirit.
like of a home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But then I remember not going back to the condo. So I just sold everything at some point and live in the van 6 years full time.
Mm.
And this is what led me to the Bon Velo TV show. We can talk
Yeah.
about this, but
Before that, what was your family like? Was your family very adventurous growing up, or
no,
was this like something like they're like, "What are you doing, Dom?" Like,
yeah. And I wish they were a bit more adventurous because, I was raised in Laval, like the suburb of
Mhm.
Montreal, and like very, very protective. Like, parents both loved me, but very protective. So it was hard to, and since I was the oldest one, because I have a younger brother, it was me that had to break the barriers.
Mm.
But I've always been like on a bicycle, basically racing BMX when I was like 5 years old. So it's always been in me, like pushing the boundaries. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience. So when I got into bike packing, I had to learn a lot about camping, being in the wild and everything. So yeah, back with the story, Bon Velo, the TV show, and then at this point,
How did that idea come up? Like, was it somebody kind of whispered in your ear, or was it good the little angel and the devil? Like,
well, yeah, if you want to get into it
no,
more
I could, yeah,
deeply,
yeah, I'm down.
then yeah, the idea is, I was like living in full time in the van at this point. So that was basically 2016 that I bought the van.
Oh, it's only 8 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
and
feels like in your grand scheme of everything, Dominick Menard, it feels like this has been like,
yeah, I think like if I was gonna, because I'm gonna, write a book, but this could be like maybe chapter like 6 of my life. I feel like
right.
I've got like 6 years cycle
Mhm.
almost. So yeah, I bought a van in 2016 and then realized that, man, I didn't need much. And I kind of loved that aspect of life. And back in the day, I just had like 2 bikes. Now, because I had an enduro bike to do pretty much everything, now it's funny that we're going back to what it was. I've got a downhill bike now, an enduro bike, a gravel bike, and
A road bike.
the
The
gravel now
gravel is
kind
kind of
of, but I have like
multi-purpose,
a
right?
second wheel set
Yeah,
because
yeah.
now road is kind of coming back a bit. I don't know if you noticed, but I got a few friends now because of gravel. They're like, "Oh, this is nice. It's nice to go fast too. So let's
Yeah,
buy a wheel set." And then they bought a road bike.
yeah.
So now I've got a second wheel
I,
set.
I went on like my first randonneur ride, like randonneuring, this spring or early summer, and it was a 300K, and I was like, man, I missed being able to do 300K of road in a
Yeah,
day and not be dead. Like it
yeah,
was nice to just go fast,
yeah. It
cruising at
does.
30 plus kilometers an hour for a big chunk of the day, and it
Yeah.
was so good.
Now it's quite interesting
Just not
how.
loving. I don't love Canadian roads; they're just not the greatest for riding on.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So yeah, but so I was living in the van, and then because I've been racing for so long, I kind of missed or actually forgot about the spirit of mountain biking, which
Mhm.
is to discover new places. And you go out in the wood. When I was younger, this is how like I got my first moments of freedom. I would go out in the little forest near my place and explore and discover new trails. And then I kind of forgot about that when I started racing. And then with the van, it's almost like time slowed down a bit again. I had time to go at the place. Let's say I was just discovering those places like Vallée Bras du Nord and Sentier du Moulin.
Mhm.
And then I went to Gaspésia, and then I realized they had trails there. I was like, what? So if I didn't know about those trails, for sure, a lot of people didn't know.
Right.
And I was like, we need to talk about this. I need to talk about this. And then as I was brainstorming, I'm like, I need like a brand, you know? And then I wanted to create it. I wanted to create something. So I came up with Bon Velo through a podcast that I love. It's called How I Build This.
Okay.
And it was the story about Au Bon Pain, which is like a bakery. And the funny thing about this story is like the big company that bought the small company, which is Au Bon Pain, kept the Au Bon Pain name because it felt more like European.
A little more authentic, and like at home-ish kind of name or something.
Exactly. And I like the sound of bon. I was like, bon vélo. So it kind of resonated with me and I stick to that. And then I found a logo, the mission. I built a website on Squarespace, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, started doing podcasts.
That's the hardest part too, right? Because you get an idea for a name, you're like, I'm going to search everything. You're like, somebody's got one. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Let's start over.
Yeah, but I got lucky. Everything was there for me to create that brand. I just wanted to put a brand out there because having a brand like this would allow me to grow. And I was already thinking about maybe like a web series or even a TV show. So I started filming myself in Gaspésia. It was at Murdochville.
What do you use for equipment at that time?
Just a cell phone.
Like cell phone?
Yeah.
GoPro or not even?
A bit of GoPro, cell phone. And I did like a 5-minute video. And I did, because at this point, I was talking about the idea to some friends, but nobody kind of wanted to give it a shot because there was no guarantee. I didn't have money. It was just an idea, you know. But when you're passionate about something, you don't do a business model. You don't, it's not important. My point was just like, we need to talk about what's going on with mountain biking. It's growing. So 2016, 17, 18, you could feel the sport grow.
It's still growing. I think.
It's still growing. And enduro bikes are a big, that explain why mountain biking was growing.
I remember 2019 when I came back to Canada, I was reading articles. I was talking about like how mountain bike is going to grow like 20% every year. Like there was huge growth.
Absolutely. And now it's e-bikes pushing the sport too. So no, it's booming. And then did that video, and a few weeks later, I put it on YouTube. And a few weeks later, the guy who owns the place there, he's like, "Hey man, there's people coming because of your video. Thanks." Wow. So this is like, oh, okay, well, this really works, this idea. So then I made an episode, like a pilot episode, when it's like you're.
I think you showed it at the summit, didn't you?
No. The pilot was like 2019 in Saint-Dumoulin. So I asked one of my friends who had all the gear, like drone and everything, to create the kind of concept I wanted with Bon Velo. So me with my van going to a place and having someone, a local, showing me the trails. And through the day, we also discovered about him, his story, because I knew that this kind of concept would resonate with TV broadcaster. So we did that. Because of it, I got a budget for a web series. And then we started filming in 2020. What happened in 2020? Do I have to tell you? So suddenly I had a video concept that was promoting traveling locally with a van life. And we're doing mountain biking. So three
things that were growing massively.
This is what people wanted. And so it was a perfect storm for me. So as soon as we launched episode 1, I could see, because the beauty of YouTube is like, we didn't have to wait, so the plan was to get there first, because I knew the sport was growing. I knew there will be a TV show and I wanted to be me.
Put something together. And
I wanted somebody from the industry and not just like a random TV host who would say, oh, wow, mountain biking looks nice. It looks fun. Let's make a TV show about it.
If you hadn't done it, man, 6 months later, GCN would have been on that.
I don't know, but yes, somebody would have picked it up for sure. And I wanted to be the one because, for 20 years, I've been trying to get out there. I've always been attracted by the camera. So I've been like modeling, I've been acting. So this is where I've done my education in kind of way, my class. Got a lot of learning on those movie sets. In Montreal, I was with an agency. I did some, acting, coaching and stuff like that. So, but then suddenly it all came together, like being a host of my own web series or TV show.
One of the stars
promoting
of the show.
mountain biking. Yeah. And then everything clicked together. And I remember one of my friends who was a cameraman for TVA, which is a channel here in Quebec. And I'm
guessing through the modeling stuff, like you met people that later on can like, you had connections.
It was a different world though. I think
I thought maybe some of them might have moved on and then it's like, oh, wait.
No, but I did try to talk about like my idea with my agency, but, she couldn't exactly figure out what to do with this idea. It's like two different industries. But so my friend invited me for dinner. He's like, man, you need to meet one of my friends who is like a VP at Québécois, which, they own Évasion, they own TVA, so big channels in Quebec, and sit there with the boys. And the next day they were going to Empire 47 for riding, mountain biking, because these guys were all like in their 50s, 10 cool guys, having dinner, barbecues together, going
And they're
riding
all
the
high
next
up in
day.
the TV industry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and then I'm telling my Bon Velo thing there. And, like the guy kind of like, he understood what I was doing, but was like, yeah, sure.
Didn't know
okay.
if it would sell or
Didn't know the impact that, So basically the next day we go to Empire 47. I park my van, and as soon as I open the doors, like there's a little family coming. They wanted a picture with me. They're like, oh, we saw your episode 1. Because remember, at this point, we have launched 1 episode, Valley Bois Nord. It's online for like a week or 2. So we're just starting. And then pictures. And even for me, I was like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because I launched this TV show around Quebec City, but I'm from Bromont, so the impact was really in Quebec. And that day, it blew my mind. So all day we were riding together, and people were like shouting, like, "Hey, Bon Velo! Hey, hi! Hey, Dom! Keep going! Nice work!" Women stopping and taking
How much
pictures.
did it cost you for all those people to do that?
Man, exactly. That's what the guy said. He's like, it looks like it's planned. I couldn't believe it myself. So the next morning, Monday, he talked to his team, and like a week later, they made an offer to buy the web series for TV. So straight out of the gate.
So you still own the rights to it, or is that like sold, or is it?
We sell them in exclusivity for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. But we still negotiated that we put season 1 on YouTube, which gave us like a
huge
big
climb,
power.
right?
Yeah.
People will see it, right?
Yeah, because if we had just launched on TV, it would have not had the same impact. YouTube is great for
Everybody
that,
watches. It's like walk around with your cell phones, watch YouTube.
So things like when you look at it, it's super fast. When we launched the episode, and the moment I create Bon Velo, like everything is super fast, but in a way, it's 20 years of experience coming together,
exactly.
right?
It takes everything to like make it happen, but it seems fast, right?
Yeah,
like it seems like it just everything fell into place, but there was all the experience to go behind it, right?
Yeah. So I guess this is less than 30 minutes for the intro. That was good. So we're at Bon Velo, and the rest, I guess, is more bikepacking oriented.
And that's perfect. Yeah. Let me think here. I lost my spot. But yeah, I guess at some point you've bike packed. You decided to put stuff on your bike. Is this when you ended Bon Velo, or what happened for the 3 years contract? I guess you finished the 3 years.
Yeah, we shoot 2 seasons.
Okay.
The second season was only on Évasion, only on TV. And this is where I realized I didn't have the same impact on people, because YouTube, you just put a link on your Instagram, people launch the app, they watch it. Évasion was like, oh, you had to go on a link, you had to be a member. So I felt like the momentum was a little less on the second season, but still, like, Bon Velo is huge in Quebec. Like we put a lot of like people on bikes for sure. We sold bikes because of that, and when I say we, is because I created Bon Velo, but I needed obviously a team with me. So I found 2 guys that were willing to to get into that adventure with me. They were cameramans, and they were doing the editing. So I team up with 2 guys to do the show. And we would hire like a photograph and a drone, FPV drone pilot for some episode and stuff. But basically we were 3. And so 2 seasons. And I remember first season, the last episode, I told my guys, because it was always mountain biking, like the concept of Bon Velo was about mountain biking. But on the last episode, I'm like, I'm curious about bikepacking. We need to talk about this, because I feel like this is also coming.
Exploding, right around that time too.
Yeah. And I'm like,
Maybe
gravel is.
Before, but
but I feel like, I don't know, maybe you can ask, because you've been in this for a while now, but I feel like right now bikepacking is growing, right? It's
still growing. Yeah, I think so. I think it kind of made its debut mid 2010s.
Yeah.
Like where it started to gain traction, I think, but really only started maybe around COVID, or just a year or 2 before.
Yeah. Yeah, because
But now you look at events, people hold like there's hundreds of people that want to go, and
absolutely.
nothing quite like getting out and just disconnecting for a couple
Yeah.
days or a week.
So even though I was not part of this community, I could feel it. I'm like, because I remember 2019, I went to Texas because I was always going south with
So
my
Bon
van.
Velo went all over North
No,
America?
no, that was just before
this is
Bon
before.
Velo. I was traveling with my van and I was in Texas riding my bike. So I got to the trailhead. It was the Big Bend Ranch State Park. So I got there and I was riding and suddenly I see a couple coming the other way and they're like full of gear, bags and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? So I stopped them and I'm like, where are you coming
What are
from?
you guys up
Because
to?
I was curious because for me, those were mountain bike trails. So, and then like, yeah, there's a 90-mile loop here, which is what's 160 kilometers,
Yes, yeah,
something
50.
like this, that goes around the park. And we've been there for 3 days and we're just finishing. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like that was my first contact.
Maybe the
with
van is too
bikepacking.
much.
Yeah, no, I was far from
Far from
thinking
that
this.
point yet,
Yeah. If you had tell me at this point you're gonna leave everything behind and go for a year and a half bikepacking trip, I wouldn't exactly understand. But yeah, that kind of like stick with me. So the next year where we had Bon Velo, the season 1, 2020, at the end of the season, I told my guys I want to make a bikepacking episode. I want to learn actually, and because I didn't know anything. But it was more like a
side project.
When I look at it now, more like cyclo-touring
Okay.
than backpacking.
Sure.
Because we were just on gravel roads basically. But so a couple.
I mean, yeah, what's one versus the other?
Yeah.
Is I think it's so hard to differentiate, right?
Absolutely.
I know lots and lots of bike tours I've had on the podcast over the years, and any of them now have a slightly more rugged bike. They go to a little further off places. Now, is that because they've kind of done all the standard touring and they're now like, okay, well, let's take some back roads to get to these places? Or is it because they've grown into bikepackers? I think I think they're one and the same in a sense.
In a sense, yeah.
I used to say, and I don't know if I still stand by this, but my idea was bike touring is kind of like backpacking. You go to Europe and you go to all the big cities and hit a few raves along the way or whatever.
Yeah.
That was bike touring to me. It's like really traveling, but going to big sites.
Yeah.
And then bikepacking was kind of like through hiking, it's like Pacific Coast Trail. You're off the grid for days or, more or less.
Yeah.
Bikepacking to me was that you're kind of going places, but really in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Maybe that was kind of the difference in my mind.
It's so hard.
I don't know if that's right. I'm sure somebody will have a different opinion, but that's kind of where I see it.
It's funny that we're talking about this because just yesterday I had somebody comment on my YouTube channel about my bike check video. And the guy was like, well, nice video, but let's not like, I don't know how he said that, but something like, meaning something like, oh, this is not bike packing, because I called the video like my bike packing setup. And then the guy's like, this is more like bike touring. And it's like saying hiking and trekking, which are not the same. So I was like, oh man, like, I didn't want to get into that, but in a way, it's like, it's funny because, so I pedaled from Victoria to Ushuaia, right?
Oh, you did? I didn't even have an idea about that. No way. Oh, that's cool. Why didn't you tell me this before?
And with a mountain bike, and I hit like the Baja Divide. So I did like 1,000 kilometers on the Baja Divide.
It sounds like touring.
Exactly, right? And I did the Trans-Mexico and with the mountain bike, and then just because I've hit some roads, now I'm doing
and people are riding like Trans-Ecuador Trail and Trans-Peru and like.
So where do you draw the line?
The Ecuador Divide and Peru Divide. Like those are not bike touring,
So it's like if I hadn't done a video, if I had like done just the Baja Divide with the same bike, then I would have been able to call this bike packing.
Yeah.
But because I went further, now it's called bike touring. But I mean,
panniers, man.
It's a panniers, right? And now you got like companies like Tailfin, they're rethinking the whole thing. And
neither of us wore a shirt, so
I love Tailfin. But man, these guys are amazing. And then they kind of like, I don't know about you, but I think people realize how effective and practical panniers are. The problem with panniers is they had this like jumbo ear, elephant ear, like
if you hit trails, bumps and
stuff. Yeah, they're all over the place. But Tailfin, you just clip it, so like panniers make sense. I
haven't
again.
Used their big ones, like the 20 liters. I know you have them, and
in Colombia, I switched from Arkel to Tailfin, And yeah, you just clip this on, and
It's the same thing, right? It hooks right on the bar.
there's a hook, so it doesn't move. It's
Mhm.
amazing. So you got more room, and it's not like a dry bag that you like take the wally straps up.
Yeah,
And you got direct access with the panniers, which is pretty cool. But yeah, maybe this is associated with bike touring. So
I've had a few people though like nag me out saying like, oh, you're just, going with the big company that makes your stuff in China and this and that. And, they have the budget and you should be buying homemade products like
yeah,
garage, what do they call them? Gear garage manufacturer, builders, whatever. I was like, yeah, I get it. Like, custom made from a small, like it's great.
hmm
But ultimately, like I spend a lot of time on a podcast. You spend a lot of time doing other bike stuff. And, we have to find what we can. And it's good stuff. It's waterproof. It's seam sealed.
yeah.
It's thermal welded. It's like,
Yeah, and it was. I remember just switching those 4 panniers from like 2 pairs of Arkel to Tailfin, and I shaved like 2 pounds. So I mean, it was worth it for me, and I do love Arkel though.
and
I
they
have
make
to
great
say,
stuff too. Yeah.
and they're super solid though. This is what I have to say though. Like the Tailfin are a bit thinner. So if you leave your bike on the side, you have to be a bit more careful. While the Arkel, you just can throw the bike
Give
and
'em a
it'll
chuck,
never
yeah.
rip off. And
Yeah.
but it does come with a bit more weight, yeah. So yeah, basically in 2019, I see this couple, they're doing a bikepacking route. So then it kind of inspired me to know more about bikepacking. So we do this episode between Bromont and
I didn't
Sutton.
know you guys did an episode on bike.
Yeah,
packing.
yeah,
Check that out.
yeah. So it's pretty nice. Like and I remember I was, can you say this in English? Green? Like I didn't know anything. Like
Yeah, I was green.
I was green, you
same,
know?
Same in French.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
be damned. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And then yeah, I show up with my gravel bike with like those like small like Evoque bags, it's like a Kleenex, the size of a Kleenex box, like
Yeah.
super small. And the girl was like all geared up with his, boyfriend, and they kind of laugh a bit about me, but they couldn't because we were filming at this point. So it's
Mhm.
like, I mean, it's a good one-nighter setup because this is what we were going for.
Yeah.
So that was my first
If you're out there
experience.
listening,
Yeah. But that was amazing. That was really cool. Like it kind of opened up my my eyes on this world. And then after that, I got like bigger bags, and then went back to the US that winter, and I hit that trail in
Oh, you
Big
did,
Bend
yeah.
Ranch State Park. Yeah,
nice.
and man, I learned the hard way because the desert it
Unforgiving,
gets
right?
super cold, man, at night.
Yeah.
It was so hot during the day. But man, I had the wrong sleeping pad, the wrong sleeping bag, and couldn't sleep. I was just counting the hours and minutes before I could see the sun. But I learned and I had a blast. And then the second loop I did a loop in Arizona. And then it just got better and better at it.
Mhm.
But there's a learning curve that is really interesting that I love about bikepacking.
Do you ever see like a Bon Velo bikepacking series? Like you just drive around and go hit these different bike routes and
It'd
like
be nice.
that'd be a really cool thing. Like you could,
It's hard to film though. I mean, it takes a lot more time.
yeah, like I know like Salty Beard, he says he spends, I think he maximum 100 kilometers a day because he's filming, and like that's big days
Oh,
of
yeah,
riding
You're
because
filming yourself.
if you're
Yeah.
filming yourself and if you have a team,
Oh.
well, then you all got to be bikers. You all got to, I guess it's more money, but
Oh yeah. No, exactly. I mean, if you're filming yourself, it's not too bad because I've done it the way down
Mhm.
to Patagonia. So every day I would film, and I say it probably takes an hour plus. After the day, you have to go through your footage and put it in folders
Mhm.
because what happens is you film so much that if you don't do it every day or every couple
It's
days,
just messed up. Huh?
yeah, it will.
I remember Serge telling me, he's like, remember Serge
Yep.
from the summit? He said, drones, man, that's what takes time.
Oh yeah,
Every time you want to launch a drone, you're looking at like half-hour stop.
true.
Like,
Absolutely. I was gonna say that. Every time I would be like, okay, I need to do a drone shot really quick. Though. Come on. And then
45
'cause
minutes later, you're like,
it's
new record.
minimum 20 minutes because
Yeah.
if your drone batteries are super short, like so you don't have much time. So as soon as you launch this, you might as well maximize the time that it's there.
Mm.
So a few photos, different angles, and a few shots, like of action. But then yeah, it's about 20-25 minutes for sure. But they're worth it though. Like it gives a different perspective. But yeah, it's a lot of commitment when you want to film. But to do a show, then I would need a crew. And I just did last week a 3-day shoot in Canton de l'Est, where I live, Eastern Townships. And it was a lot of work. And the first day we did 90 kilometers, and that's the maximum I think you can do. And that was gravel. Imagine bikepacking. So we had a car, 2 cameramans, and so you have to go back and forth, and it would be a lot more work to do a show like that.
Yeah.
Because if you do mountain biking, it's a mountain, so
Yeah,
everything
your
is center.
the trails are up and down,
Yeah.
coming down to like the
Yeah.
yeah.
And we saved time because I also wrote the route before. So I went to do some, how do you say this in English? Like repérage, when you go before scouting.
Mhm.
So I knew where to film. Like, okay, we need a drone shot there. So this saves time. But if you're gonna go, let's say in Baja or
just ride a route and
oh my god, so you would need somebody who actually ride a bicycle or a motorcycle.
Somebody who's done the route before.
Well, you would need a cyclist, like a cameraman.
Yeah.
That would actually can do the route with you and then film.
You need Luis Filipovic.
Exactly.
She rides single track trails downhill, shooting pictures.
Yeah. She's amazing. Like her pictures are amazing.
Yeah. You've been following her?
Sure. Yeah, I met her here at the summit.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been following what she's doing. Yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. And so at some point you decided just to sell everything and ride south, and that's it. We're done.
Oh, I mean, for cycling? Yeah. So what happened is like after 2 seasons of filming, I went down south, and so that was actually December 2021.
Okay.
And then I pick up a book in South Carolina by pure coincidence called "To Shake the Sleeping Self."
Okay.
And if you look at the cover, like it's a guy with a hat, like it doesn't vibrate biking, it's just so randomly I opened the book, and then I kind of realized it's a touring trip, a cycling trip. A guy who does Oregon to Patagonia. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I pick up this book, and I remember picking also Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia. And the other book was Doug Thompson, the founder of North Face, who owns land in Patagonia as well. So picking up 3 books about Patagonia that winter.
Tie into it, huh?
This was weird, right? When you think about it now. But then To Shake the Sleeping Self, I started reading it, and I was completely like absorbed by the book, like page by page. It's the only book I think I have loved a lot of books in my life, but that was the only book where like it changed something in me. Like I was just in the story, and especially like those moments where he's on the Oregon West Coast, he sees the ocean for the first time. So that feeling of being free, with his panniers and all his gear and going for such a long journey, I was like hooked on that story. And I was reading the pages, and I was like, I need to do that, and this is where I've done this loop in Texas and Arizona and Utah. And I remember in Arizona, that was the second loop I did. On the third day, I filmed myself because it was kind of if I was making a promise to myself, because it's hard to lie to yourself, So if you write down something that you want to do, and then a few months later or whatever, you
hold you accountable maybe a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I lie to myself a lot.
Yeah. You could feel guilty by not doing it, but it's a good reminder of the emotion that you were at the time. And so I filmed myself. I'm like, this is my third day cycling, and at this point it got better because I had like a good sleeping pad, good sleeping bag, and I was getting into it. Like third day, I was just like, oh man, I want to know what it is to pedal for a long time in one direction, because I was doing loops, And this is kind of where I decided I was going to do this. And a few weeks later, when I finished the book, I called my best friend. I'm like, Ali, I think I'm going to cycle to Patagonia. And she started laughing, and she said, you're going to do it. So at this point, like January 2022, this is kind of where I'm like, okay, I'm doing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, but you still had a season. Technically, you owed a season to Bon Velo, the 3 seasons you said?
No, we just finished season 2, and we were trying to figure out if we were going to have like a season 3. But what happened is like we were financing ourselves, So Da Vinci, Guru, Van Life Montreal back in the days, and all, in this like the cities, and Quebec Vélo Montagne, which is the association of 5 mountains in Quebec.
Oh, okay.
So they were all throwing money in this project. So we were auto-financing ourselves.
Okay.
There's two ways to do it, though.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you do is like you present a pilot to a TV show, a TV channel, and they will buy the idea and say, okay, we want it. How much does it cost? And, they cover the cost. And then you just produce a show. But I remember when I first went to see a TV broadcaster, they're like, no, you're not known. Like nobody knows you in the TV industry. And mountain biking is just too niche. It's not popular enough. And I was like, no, wait for it. It's going to boom. And so that's why I started with my cell phone, like trying to create my own thing. And then hoping maybe somebody is going to like the idea and help me out. So that's what we did. And so basically we were financing ourselves, but we could have not done that on the third season because we need to go out of Quebec at this point.
You were kind of at the point where Quebec had been covered and you were looking at like either Ontario, Vermont, things like that. Would that have been the idea?
Yeah, I would have loved to,
And then of course, if you're going to go to the US, then you need to like visa rights and stuff for business because they're going to be like, you're going to just shoot a whole bunch of videos for nothing.
US, man, it's so tough. They're super strict. But yeah, we were hoping that the TV channel would take us under their wings, which was not the plan, the case. So I think it was a good decision for me to just go on this trip. But people were like, what are you doing? Because I had the van, I had a show, like everything was rolling for me, right?
Yeah.
And people were
everything was going in the right direction.
Yeah. So like I've always wanted. And then came
like, man, I read a book.
Yeah. That's it. It sounds foolish, but that was the story. Like following your instinct, like that's what led me to Bon Velo. My instinct always served me, back in the days down in racing. So at this point, man, it was boiling in me. I'm like, I need to do this trip. So I went back to Quebec, got the van back to my sponsor because it was a loan. I'm like, I'm not renewing the contract. I'm going to pedal for a long time. And people were like, what do you mean for a long time? I'm like,
how long is a long time?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know myself, to be honest. Like the dream was to make it to Patagonia, but I was super like humble with that thing because it's such a big adventure. And I didn't know at this point if I had, what it took. I don't know, because I've done a few loops, like 5-day loop. But what is it to like go for a month, 6 months, a year? I didn't know. And also I didn't know if I had because I was dealing with a bit of a knee injury as well. All these factors, and now at this point I have a following. I've got an audience on Instagram and YouTube. And at some point, if I announce it, man, it's a big pressure, to deliver at this point. And for me, this trip, it was a bit about deconnection, just like 2 seasons of Bon Velo. And there was a lot going on at this point in my life.
And it's probably been pretty busy seasons.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like you're not slowing down, you're hustling.
Exactly. And that's what I loved about bike biking, as I was just on my bike with all the things I needed. So it's funny how, I was already minimalist with my van, and now it's just another level, like having everything on the bicycle this time.
Yeah.
But I love that
who's
feeling.
That Japanese lady that does the minimalist stuff? And it's like Marie Kondo or something?
Or
she'd be like, he's doing good.
Oh, yeah.
But I see, I keep thinking you get rid of more.
Oh, man. Well, I did actually. We can talk when I started.
Yeah.
And finished a year and a half later with 15 pounds of stuff that I left somewhere behind or sent back home. But yeah, I had too much stuff when I started.
Yeah. Well, everybody does. I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's like first big trip, right? You pack your fear, as they say.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well said. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I went back to Quebec, got the van, brought back the van to the dealer, and then started preparing a bike. So it was pretty cool, like process of just being so focused on something. There's nothing getting on your way.
What made you choose like the specific Da Vinci bike you did?
Yeah.
And was Da Vinci cool with it? Were they like, oh, we're giving you a bike to just disappear? Or like, what's the deal here, Dominick?
Remember, that was 2022. And we were still into this COVID inventory problem. So I had to pay for this bike, basically.
Okay.
So because I asked them, but they didn't have any large in the Cobain, which is a hardtail, a 29er hardtail aluminum, which is made in Quebec, actually. So that's a pretty cool story.
They like form the aluminum?
Welded
here.
Okay. Yeah. So
Cool.
they still make a lot of bikes, actually. The Troy that just came out last week is
Yeah, I saw
also
the
made
pictures.
in Quebec. And
2 models, right? They got the 130, 140.
yeah,
That's
exactly. Following, right?
Check it out.
Check it out. So they wanted to help, but they're like, oh, all we have is a small. Oh yeah, this is what happened. They had a small, and then I found
I think I could do it.
no, it didn't work. But I had a guy, one of my friends, Didier, in another bike shop in Vaudreuil, who had a large. So I basically bought the large and switched the parts on the small. And because all I got was a frame small frame from Da Vinci, and didn't want to like waste a part. So I just put because it was cheap parts. Like this is like an entry level mountain bike,
exactly.
right?
So then you sold the small.
I sold the small, all fully equipped with the
Yeah.
parts. So, in a way, I didn't pay for the bike because I was able to
You kind of
have my money back.
Yeah.
And then started building the bike from scratch. So Fox helped me out with a fork. Got the Fox Fox Factory 34 on there.
Like Taiga, yeah. Love it.
Yeah, I love this fork.
Putting forks, like suspension, on my bike packing rig changed
Yeah.
my life.
Absolutely.
We're in our mid 40s. It's hard on your wrist to hit bumps all day on rigid.
I guess so. I never
really,
tried.
Yeah,
I
so
would be curious to see the difference.
So you saw the bike on the wall there,
Yeah.
the Thai bike. After a year, man, like I'd just be riding. My wrists are
Mhm.
sore after a day or two. I'm like,
Yeah.
Suspension, man.
This is worth the, I don't know.
Factory's pretty high end. It's nice. It's beautiful.
Well,
but
that's
it's
the thing.
It's not, but just the suspension in general.
Yeah,
it's
I
awesome.
told the guy at Will at Fox, I'm like, because they were sponsoring me, right? They're sponsoring the Da
Yeah.
Vinci team. And I'm like, do you have a black one? Like, I don't want to have an orange fork with the freaking gold sanctions. And I couldn't see myself in Mexico with this. It's funny how like you fear those countries before, but I didn't want to be that
standing out so
Oh
much.
yeah. So I had the fork wrapped in black, basically, which was a smart move too because it protected the fork. Because then I got the clips from Tailfin.
Yeah, I damaged my stickers on the Fox.
Yeah. They call it. It's a fork suspension mount. I can't remember
Fork
exactly.
mount system of some sort.
Something like this. So this allowed me to put Nalgene bottles there. So I had a 1.5 liter Nalgene bottle. If you're interested, by the way, this bike check video I was talking earlier, it was made in Salvador, and it's a complete bike check of my bike. Cool. It's on my channel,
the
YouTube.
Notes.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy with the setup. Honestly, I nailed it. Like for the first time, like putting a bike together, it was good setup. And then I got the Old Man Mountain Racks Divide front and back.
Okay.
Heavy, but man, they're.
Did you ever wish you would have had an Elkhorn or like
maybe in the front?
Yeah.
Just
like you get the bottle cage and mounts and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I have a Divide as well. And
well,
sometimes I wish I had the Elkhorn. I'm like, oh.
Actually, no, because I had panniers in the front, so you couldn't put panniers, right?
Yeah. I think you can use panniers, but you have to just adjust things, right?
Yeah. But now the setup I have though is Telfin's got the fork backs, so you can put this on the fork and clip the bag on the fork.
That's what I use.
So you don't have a rack now.
Are you using 5 or 10 liters?
Using the 10 liters.
Okay, I got the
and
5s.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got the 5s, and I feel like it's good if I'm not going on a long trip. Like if I was to go on a trip with my wife and kid, I'd be like, oh, I need more space.
Yeah. The thing with Telfin though, I don't know about why they're doing this. It's their philosophy, but the bottom of the panniers are narrow, which I don't get because usually you pack the heavier things in the bottom. They're always more bulky.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to pack those. So especially in a 5 liter, you're missing that.
It's like my stove fits in nicely, and then a few things around it and food, and the other side.
I know it's probably doing this for aerodynamics, but
I guess so.
That's why I like the Arkel a bit better for volume wise. It's just
a little more square.
Square,
like
just
you put a rectangle over.
Yeah, so you put the sleeping bag at the bottom and stuff. So I remember switching from Arkel to Telfin and having to rethink my Tetris because it gets to a point where everything has its place, right?
Yeah.
So Old Man Mountain Racks, which are amazing. They fit on the axles. And then put up, just NV wheels, NVAM 30 wheels, because they're helping me out. It was weird to go with carbon wheels for just a trip like that, but never had any issues.
You're gonna have less issues. Like, I don't know. I had actually right now I got my carbon rims. There's 5 loose spokes, so
Yeah.
Carl's gonna come sort that. But I used to have a road bike that had profile design carbon rims. They weren't the top of anything rims, but wherever I got them built, they did such a good job.
yeah.
Those wheels I never had a tension spoke in like 8 years.
Well, I think the key is
And
how you build
It's
it.
how they're built.
So
right?
if you have a good wheel builder, they can last forever.
Same with my alloy rims. Carl built for me here.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Never out of true.
I think there's this mentality of going on bike touring trip with equipment that is very basic, but there's like good bike shops everywhere now. This is kind of what I realized. And high-end stuff will last, like, I don't know, this is experience I had. Envy wheels, 5 years, mountain biking with it, never broke a wheel, never. So at this point, I'm like, might as well go with something that works for me, So I stick with this, and it worked out super well. Yeah, that's pretty much the setup I had. And then it was a matter
of
of
running 4 panniers, so it was
4 panniers.
It was at that time kind of a bikepacking touring mix, like heavier bikepacking, right?
Yeah, it would have not be possible to leave with like a backpacking setup. You're leaving for a year and a half. You need I had like a -7 sleeping bag, which is false because I knew in Andes, even in Mexico, it was actually really cold because we took the Trans-Mexico, rode the Trans-Mexico, and you go up to 3,200 meters, even 4,000 something on the volcano, on one of the volcano there. So it's pretty high. So it gets cold at night, -2, 3. So bulky sleeping bag, obviously a 4-season sleeping pad. So this takes a lot of room. So panniers made sense. And then I had a 2-person tent instead of a 1-person tent, just because
have some space.
Everything inside. I had a foldable chair, which is
nice.
I guess how do you say this? A topic we could debate.
Debatable topic.
Whether I enjoy it though.
I think. Yeah, I mean, I always feel like I'm packing too much stuff, so I would never take the folding chair. But then when you see it, I went camping in the spring with Serge. He pulls out this folding chair.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, you asshole.
Every time though. Yeah.
I was like, and it was a one-nighter, and I was like, oh, you look so comfortable. And
absolutely.
My butt is cold. Like,
well, especially once you get to Baja, all the down the West Coast, you have like state parks and picnic tables. As soon as you get to Baja, you're just sitting on the ground, Yeah. And I've been bitten by a scorpion in Baja before, so they're out there, and you have to be careful. So having a chair was pretty nice actually, and it's just 1 pound.
Is it like a Helinox or Big Agnes one, or?
Yeah, it's the ground zero, so it doesn't have like those little like how do you see this? Like, it doesn't
crossbars.
I guess. So basically, you're sitting on the frame, so it's super low.
Okay,
but it does a better job.
Is it just like there's no backing?
There's a backing.
Oh, there's a back too.
Yeah. But it's sitting on the floor, so you don't have like those little cross arms at the bottom, which kind of gets into the sand sometimes.
Legs.
Yeah, exactly. You're sitting super low, which makes sense when you're cooking on the ground and everything. So I love this chair.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it was worth it, and also it kind of like, how uncomfortable it can get on being on a bike for so long, and uncomfortable in terms of like your hygiene. You're just out there, right? And it's raining or whatever. So it's nice to be comfortable at the campground, and it would, especially the days are short. 6 o'clock, as you go through, like you get closer to the equator.
In Malaysia was 7 p.m., but I guess depending on the time zone, it's like 6.
Yeah, here during the summertime it gets dark at 9 o'clock, but over there, no matter when, it's near the equator, so it's 6. Yeah. So it kind of brings a bit more comfort during those long evenings. And you can sit in the tent if you want to.
How small is it pack up? Like, you put it on top of the rack, or?
Yeah, it was in the. I had a backpack in the back.
Okay,
sitting
strapped down. Yeah.
Yeah, strapped down, which is pretty cool having a backpack because it could be useful.
Yeah, I remember a guy I had on the podcast years back. He was like, "I've converted to the backpack because now I can just leave my bike somewhere, lock it up, go for a hike, or whatever. Like, it's so much more usable for those various occasions."
So that was the bike prep during the summer. And then I flew to Victoria because I lived in Victoria. So it kind of makes sense to start from there. I had a friend there as well. So I spent another week going back and forth at REI because I was missing stuff. Or actually, it's MEC.
Nick, yeah.
But so September 18th, 2022, I was ready to go and started pedaling south.
So from when you actually thought of like, I'm going to do this trip to making it happen, it still took a good chunk of time.
January to September.
Yeah, I was going to say 8-9 months, right?
Because you meet a lot of people who've been planning this for years and saving money. And I guess,
in the grand scheme, 8-9 months is not long.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Especially for this type of adventure. But for me, it was like, time is now, like there's an opportunity and I got money saved. And also I got sponsorships, right? So it does help. I had like revenues.
Connections and
you
don't know what would have happened 3 years later, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. So I was fortunate to be able to make a bit of money on the road while I was on the road. So it wasn't like, because a lot of cyclists I met, they had money saved and they would divide that money by the number of days they thought they were going to go for. And then it was like, well, we have $25 a day or something, I was fortunate enough that money was
salary that you could count on.
Yeah. So that changed a lot.
Yeah. There's not too many bike packers that you meet that are, can consider themselves professional bike packers in the sense that they're being paid and they have money coming in that can keep this lifestyle going, right?
Absolutely. No, I feel like I'm fortunate, but again, if you look at everything I've done, so since 97, racing,
it was building the resume,
sponsorship with Da Vinci for 20 years, and and then a TV show brought me an audience. This audience, I can monetize it on Instagram and YouTube now. It's like visibility for the sponsors, so they understand that. So what I do is I kind of negotiate like a monthly salary with them instead of trying to always to prove myself. Let's say, well, I've done, I don't know, this appearance in an event and this podcast and always proving yourself. I think with the years, they see the value, right? They see the value. I sell bikes, we've seen it with Bon Velo. People send me, that's the best for me when people send me an Instagram message saying, hey, I bought a Da Vinci Troy because of you, or I bought a van because of you. So what happened is when I have this kind of message, I screenshot it. And I've got an ambassador folder, and in every, and then in this ambassador folder, I've got like Da Vinci, Guru, Parmi, and just original bike or parts. So I put it there. So this way I can prove my sponsor.
Ask you something, you say, "No, check out this." Right?
Yeah. So I sell bikes, I sell shoes, I sell whatever. So, well, because of that, it kind of like I have to answer people, right? Because they're shopping for a bike or a helmet or whatever. But this translates in sales, and this is how you deal sponsorship.
How do you deal with people that are like, oh, all you're doing is trying to sell or whatever? Like, is there an answer to that? Like, because I've had it, where people are like, oh, you have sponsors. So, I don't believe in having sponsors because it takes away from the authenticity of what I do. And I'm like, well, must be lucky. Like,
well, for me, I think I'm lucky because it's the product I would use anyway, so for me, it's natural, it's not like if I'm trying to push a product that I'm not using, but also I don't do collabs, for me, my strategy with sponsorship is organic. So they see the Guru sticker on the helmet. I drink the Guru once in a while in my Instagram stories and stuff, I don't push it too much, but it's there. Da Vinci, people know I ride Da Vinci. It's there, it's in your face.
You're not saying go buy this bike. I mean, because there's a ton of good bikes out there. You're just saying this is what I ride. And
sometimes like this week, I had somebody who was asking question for a gravel bike, and we were talking about like a Da Vinci hatchet and blah blah blah. And then for what he was doing, I'm like, man, maybe the Panorama bike is better for you. I'm not shy to do like because what happened is like if you stay true to yourself, people if then you tell them like, oh no, this is the Da Vinci hatchet you need, but they'll trust you
but then if they don't have a good experience, they're gonna be like blah blah blah, right? So if it's not the bike that suits them, for like you said, the Panorama might have suited him better for this particular style.
And I've been honest, and I don't think Da Vinci is gonna be pissed about it because they know like they can't answer everybody's like needs, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
you
that
have
makes
certain
sense.
categories, and
Mhm.
that explained your question, though I forgot. But the reason why I took a Da Vinci Cobain is just because at this point I needed to choose a bike from the Da Vinci family, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I knew I needed bigger tires. So the only option really was that mountain bike. And also I'm a mountain biker. So it kind of made sense for me. I'm super comfortable on a mountain bike. And also I knew I wanted to do bikepacking routes. And also thought, hey, it would be nice if I stop at some place. I could ride mountain bike with my bike, which happened in Oaxaca.
Oh, it
And
did happen?
yeah,
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 you took all the stuff off
yeah.
and just
Went for a ride.
yeah. Cool. So you left Vancouver, Victoria, September 18th, you said?
Yeah,
And
2022.
how was your knee? Because I know you mentioned your knee and
Yeah, that was something I needed to look before I left. So for years, I had this knee issue. Like, let's say I was doing 70, 80 kilometers. It would sometimes be sore for whatever reason. Some summer, I didn't have it just because I guess I was fit properly, or maybe I was more flexible. But I needed to fix this. So what I did is a retool technology fit. So basically, somebody puts you on a bike and they have all these instruments, computer.
oh, I think I saw the
Um,
video or pictures. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So did that, and they did molded soles as well.
Ah, okay.
Man, the bike, I felt so comfortable on the bike suddenly, and I also learned and realized that I was pedaling with my knees inside too much, so I had to bring those knees out, more aligned with my toe, and I went with a osteopath. And she found that in my, I don't know, you call those muscles in your, like the butt
Glutes.
glutes maybe or
Yeah.
something. They were super weak. So she would just take my leg and some movement, and there was no resistance.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I had to work in the gym at this point. So for all
She's like
summer long,
cyclists, no ass muscles.
yeah, well, we developed some kind of weakness sometimes
Well,
because
I think because hamstrings, if I remember correctly, cyclists' hamstrings get tight
Yep.
because they don't really stretch out when you're cycling, and probably leads to like less usage of the glutes, I'm assuming.
yeah. And the T-band is all
I know I'm doing
pull
dynamic
on the
cyclist
knee.
stuff now, and it's like, man, some of those are really hard and they don't look like they're hard exercises. Like,
Yeah,
I
they
feel
are.
like very weak.
Yeah. Well, it's like any sports. If you
Yeah.
do the same sport, and we do it like hardcore, like 5, 6, 7 days a week, and so obviously you're gonna develop some weakness, and so you have to be balanced. So we work on that all summer, and it paid off because I didn't have any issues on the trip. So that's why after a few weeks,
Do you still use the custom insoles?
yeah, they're
Awesome.
amazing. And I did.
I'm a teacher. We have insurance, so we can actually get them
Oh
made.
yeah,
And I'm
do it,
like, I
man.
should
So a
look into
game
that.
changer.
Yeah.
And I made a video about this. I think I made almost 30,000 kilometers with those soles. So
Oh, wow.
they're,
Okay.
you're good for a while. I think every year you should maybe remold them.
Okay.
You go back and it will reshape it to
Oh,
you. But the material will last for a long time. So yeah, September 18th, I left. And I remember like the first day I was so excited, but such a newbie, like I got to the first camp spot, and which I had, this is the only, I think, moment where I had planned something, like when I left, I had no idea where I was going. I knew the first day where I would sleep, and
Okay.
that's it. And then got there, that was in Washington. And then I remember trying to figure out how my stove was working. I had a friend showed it to me, but I couldn't remember. So I was on YouTube, and fortunately I had like one level of like cell phone service, one bar, and then trying to figure out how the store work and stuff. So it was funny when I look back on those moments. But man, I was so excited. Those moments though, I missed them.
So your thing was like, I'm gonna go south. I'll figure out where I'm going each
We'll see.
day. Like, I mean, the general route was there. You knew kind of.
Yeah. I drove to Baja with my van. And so I was like, oh, it would be nice at least to get to Baja, like, and from there we'll see,
Yeah.
everything would be a bonus.
Did you ride like Pacific Coast?
So yeah, stick to the Pacific Coast.
It's a good way to start out too, right? Rather than going like, I'm gonna go hit the Tour Divide or the Great Divide mountain bike route, and
or the Oregon Timber Trail.
Hardcore. I'm gonna do this right away and like kill yourself. Yourself. Like,
well, I remember trying to go through a trail the second day, and I had to turn around because I missed a turn, and it was getting, I think the first day I left, it was like 12:30 because I didn't know how to pack properly, and So I had to turn around and go back on the cycle path, which was an amazing cycle path. And then I remember the second night after everything is done, you
Mm-hmm.
left. I was in the tent the second night, and I almost had a bit of a panic attack. I was sitting in not sitting, but lying in my tent and looking at the roof. I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing? Like at this point, it struck me because for months you've been preparing, so you're not really thinking about
Mhm.
like, I don't know,
The
it's
reality
yeah,
parts.
the reality
yeah,
of
yeah.
it. But the second night, I was like, oh shit, like, am I really gonna make it to Patagonia at this point? Like, I'm gone for a year and a half,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
started freaking out a bit. I'm like, is this what I want?
This is
Maybe,
day 2 of 500. Like,
yeah, I can come back. I can just turn
Yeah.
around tomorrow, and I'll be on the ferry to Victoria, and then, yeah, it was a bit of a difficult moment. It was a super like a bit maybe it was fear, I guess, or it's the unknown.
So what was your strategy to like say, okay, I'll get up tomorrow morning and I'll keep going?
There's a famous quote, and I heard it from Lyle Wilcox
Wilcox?
again. This I don't know if whoever came with that sentence, but it helped me out. It's you can always quit later.
Okay.
So it's like give it a shot is also a sentence that I also repeat myself all over. Like
Okay.
even
Like a
when
mantra.
mantra. Like I started Bon Velo like that. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
And it kind of like takes the pressure off of succeeding. Just give it a shot. An hour, a day, or whatever. And so the next day I'm like, all right, just give it a shot. And it's on the third day that I saw the coast, the ocean, just like the book. And then I was like on a high, man. It was like I had like shivers, and I was like, oh my God, I'm really doing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And at this point, I was going
You're good.
I was going down,
Yeah, I
it's
think
just
I
like
had heard somewhere it's like when you're like
not going
I
down,
forget-
sorry, going down south.
down south. I think I had heard somewhere there was like if you're feeling like quitting, like in a bike pack route or a race or whatever, it's like just go to sleep, wake up the next day and
Yeah,
analyze it with like a good rest.
absolutely.
Because probably most of the time you'll change your mind, unless you're injured and then you're like, okay, yeah, I am too injured.
Yes, I stick on the coast all the way down and met so many cyclists. It's just amazing.
I think that's the good thing about the Pacific Coast, right? Is like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
gonna meet people. There's always people riding it. I mean,
Especially at this time of the year, I would catch people that started in Alaska. And this is where I was a bit of an intruder at this point. I didn't know much about where I'm going and stuff.
and they've already been going for like
Yeah.
2,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
or
And I'm like,
whatever, right?
oh shit. So this America route, I would have needed to start from Alaska if I really wanted to make the whole thing. So maybe I'll do this one
Go
day.
finish that section.
Yeah, yeah. But at this point, I was just like, Victoria made sense. The book I read, the guy started in Oregon, and
Yeah.
so I just left from
I
Victoria.
rode from Victoria to Whitehorse.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful.
Oh,
climb.
geez.
What a great.
Yeah, you
climb.
could start
Yeah.
from Victoria as well and go up. That's another
Turn
option.
over and go to
Oh,
Deadhorse.
that could be nice.
And I went like via Whistler and
Yeah.
Lillooet and all that stuff. It was
Nice. Yeah, Victoria would be my start of
on
all my
roads with a
adventure.
bikepacking setup. So clearly not bikepacking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I got to San Diego, and I had a friend from Quebec join me for the Barra Divide.
Okay.
And GS Pitt from the Pit Velo Cafe, one of my good friends. So he joined me there. We rode maybe half of the Barra Divide because at some point, like, the bike was really heavy,
Yeah.
so heavy. And at this point, it was still heavy as well, just because, I don't know, I was insecure and had more stuff than I needed. So Barra Divide is a tough one,
You hadn't decided yet like what you can get rid of or if you should get rid of it,
Yeah.
right? Because you also feel like, oh, I'm going to need it later.
Yeah.
I'm going to need it.
And I also needed my laptop because I still
Yeah.
needed to work on the
Yeah.
road. And I was editing at first my videos because I started also documenting.
Like how many hard drives do you carry?
Only one.
Just one?
Yeah. I was filming in 1080p with my cell phone.
Okay.
So it's not too bad.
Yeah.
And then I would, as soon as I had a chance, upload on Google Drive. So almost every day I would create a folder with the date.
And so you just paid for like a huge amount of Google Drive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This was good for a backup, but at some point I also got a budget from Guru and DaVinci. So I had actually a little bit budget for somebody to edit back in Quebec.
Oh, that's nice.
That was super cool. And that's the only way I could have like actually upload episode as I was traveling, because it would have been
Otherwise, you'd have to stop somewhere for a week just to work on a video, right?
I did that on the West Coast, and as like other cyclists were having fun, I was editing. Like I would spend my days off editing, which was kind of crazy. So I'm glad they had this budget, but yeah, so I had a laptop and all my stuff. So we went back and forth. So it was nice though. Like Baja Divide is a route I'd like to go back and do the whole thing.
Yeah, me too.
And then I got to La Paz, took the ferry to Mazatlan, and this is where I was in the Sinaloa province cartel. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I don't know, being alone here, because West Coast, like almost feels like home.
Yeah.
It's super easy. There's third parks. It's a great way to start.
Mexico's different. Baja's different, but it's empty.
Baja is a dream for bikepacking.
Yeah.
And even for the van, I've been to Baja with my van twice. So easy to camp. You could just go on iOverlander and find all those cool spots. Especially if you follow the Baja Divide, you also have tips like that. And so, but then you get to Mazatlan, which is the mainland of Mexico, and this is just totally different. Also, it's nice. You feel that the culture is different, like the buildings, the colors, chaos, like dogs everywhere and just like music playing.
Are the dogs like super aggressive, or is it just?
I never had a bad experience with dogs, but
because I know like Eastern Europe, they say the dogs are awful, right?
Like,
they chase and bite,
they are annoying at some point, even at night. They will, because you have like stray dogs as well, and they just like are on the street, and then they start fighting sometimes at night. And it's not like here, right? It's a reality. You need earplugs on those kind of trips for sure.
Any issues with cartel stuff?
So I teamed up with two guys at this point. So waited for them to. They were actually in Baja as well. We met them. I met them in California. So there was a Canadian guy and a Swiss guy, and decided it was maybe better to team up. So we started on the Trans-Mexico, another bikepacking route. And then the second night or third night, and this is where it changes, right? Like once you get, even though we did some wild camping in Baja, I felt super safe. But wild camping at this point, all the way down almost, is just like, okay, now you have to figure out where to sleep. Is it private land, or, so it's like hide and seek a bit, which I like a little less.
It's much more stealth than right? Like you're really being careful not to be seen.
So we waited till it was like maybe 4:30. So the sun was like low. We still had like an hour and a half of light. So we found a spot near the road, and it was like a big concrete wall. And at the bottom, there was it was like flat ground, because that was near a mountain. Like we were on the cliff almost, because we were super high at this point. Because once you go to on the Trans-Mexico, you go up like to 3,000 meters almost for a while. And so we were camped there, and we were hidden. Like there was no way you could see us from the road, unless you're in the area somehow, maybe at the bottom, and you have a view on the mountain.
Goggles.
I don't know, but this guy shows up with a freaking rifle, and with the lights at the camp.
Do any of you speak Spanish?
No. Okay. And at this point, it's like 10 o'clock. I'm in my tent, like watching a movie, but all I could see is like flash, like if somebody wants to draw attention in your tent or something. And I was like, what's going on? So I paused the movie, and then a rider, Canadian guy, is like outside of the tent talking Spanish, or trying to talk Spanish. And this guy is just asking questions. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I'm just not moving, because I don't want to draw any attention, And then, he just asked us a few questions. And after maybe 5 minutes, he's like, okay, you can camp here. So he kind of gives us permission.
Okay.
But that was a reality check, and I was following Orion.
So maybe everybody's being careful. They're paid to just watch the area, make sure it's safe from.
It could have been, local police or local like security or a cartel. I don't know at this point, but still a guy with a rifle that wakes up, not that wakes you up, but almost, that shows up at your campsite while you thought you were hidden. And so that was like, okay, we're in unknown territory.
Gotta be careful.
Yeah. So Ryder didn't like this experience at all. So he took a bus. Actually, he did what Ryan Doozer did, because I watched his video. Ryan did the Trans-Mexico, and he skipped
that section.
Sinaloa, Zacatecas. So basically, you have the Sinaloa cartel fighting against Jalisco New Generation for that territory. So sometimes it's like a little bit unstable. So my friend took a bus to Aguascalientes. So we were like going to see him in 2 weeks from there. And so I stick with the Swiss guy. And then we met a couple from Belgium. So we were a bunch riding together back and forth, sometimes you ride alone and you see them again. And but that was nice knowing there was like other cyclists around you.
Yeah.
But still, Mexico is still I think my favorite country.
I've heard that from a lot of people. I've heard like a lot of people go, it's like, you have to go cycle in Mexico.
Oh,
like, there's chances of danger, but there's chances of danger everywhere, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, that maybe it's slightly elevated in certain areas, but if you're careful.
It was just this part because a few days later, I had an encounter, and that was a cartel for sure, Sinaloa cartel, because we had met one of the member who said that he would advise his group that we were around. Because the Trans-Mexico goes through lands.
Like Google Translate voice translations, or
no? Well, it's just a bit like, it's funny how like sometimes
how
like
fast you pick up keywords.
Yeah, it's funny how like sometimes I try to remember conversation and I feel like they happen in English or whatever, but it was Spanish. But anyway, so basically he advised his gang that we were around, and I think the next day I came to a turn, and then I see like those. It was like a movie scene, like 2 big pickup trucks, one black, one
blocking
white.
the road.
Yeah, they were actually, there was 2 guards,
Okay.
like young guys, like maybe 19 years old, with a baseball cap, the mask, there were rifles, 6, 7 other guys in the back, just like, because it was on a valley, so you could see everything from there. It was super high.
Plateau.
It was just before, plateau, just before downhill. And so I'm like, oh, well, here we go. It's happening. And so I just slowed down.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Yeah, exactly. I went for the naive gringo smile, just like, hey, todo bien? And like everything is all good. And they're like, yeah, sí, todo bien. And so I slowed down by respect, but I didn't want to stop to create a situation where you're like, okay, ask me questions or whatever.
Right.
And I went through and waved and just
were you on your own at this point here?
I was on my own, but the Swiss guy came after with a Japanese guy who took a picture of this. Actually got a picture of the whole scene with a zoom, but and then they got stopped and they had like a bad experience, like uncomfortable experience. Compared to me,
like dangerous, violent experience, just an uncomfortable experience.
Questions and stuff like that. So I didn't have like the same experience. For me, it was just like, oh no, they were super nice, and they were like, oh man, it was so sketchy. I didn't like that. So very different experience.
Wild.
But that was the only time that we ran into cartels, and from there, like honestly, the only uncomfortable encounter was in Salvador with a guy named Mauricio, who was obviously finding myself attracted. He was finding me attractive.
Shirt off in front of him? Or
yeah, well, actually, he wanted me to take all my clothes off because it was in a wild camp spot in Salvador near a lake. And I had already washed myself. I was just sitting there looking around like, am I comfortable to set up my camp here? Before taking the tent out,
right.
I would
chill for a
while,
snack,
eat dinner. And when you're ready, just set up the camp. And then this guy comes up and he's maybe in his late 50s.
Is he a cyclist or?
No, just a random guy. And then he's like saying something about how Americans like to go for a swim naked. And I'm like, no, we don't do that.
You're like, I'm Canadian, sorry.
And I'm Canadian, by the way. But I'm like, no, I'm good. I just wash myself, and because he's inviting me, and then
you almost might wonder if it's like if you get naked, he wants to grab your stuff and
I'm sticking with my stuff around me for sure. I'm not going in the lake. So he goes in the lake and then start, undressing himself, and he goes for a little bit. And at this point, I just changed spot, right? I go to another spot and kind of lost, a track of him, And then I'm cooking, and then he shows up after he swam, and then he started just like sticking around. But at some point, he always make allusion to sex, he was talking about this, and my Spanish is not good, after 2 minutes, like I've got nothing to say, like all my my key sentence are done, I'm Canadian, I'm going to Patagonia and blah blah blah, and after this, like I don't know what to tell him, but he's sticking around. And so that lasted for a bit. Obviously, it was not dangerous, but it was just an uncomfortable situation. And to be honest, this is where maybe I can understand girls being a bit more uncomfortable traveling alone. For me, it was like, okay, worst case, I'm just going to fight him or
just
something.
to be looked at awkwardly or some
Yeah,
awkward
yeah,
phrases. And
Yeah.
so you kind of
Yeah.
had a moment in the shoes of a woman bike tour solo or
Yeah.
something.
But that was the only encounter, and then never got things stolen from me. Like the entire trip, man, was just like, I was so blessed.
Things are
man,
lucky.
super well. Didn't get
At what
sick.
point did you decide to change up your bags and unload some of the weight?
Well, Mexico, I spent 5 months there, right? And so once I got 5 months, it was like, if you include
Mexico's
Baja,
huge. People don't realize it is. I mean, look at Jonas Dykman when he ran across Mexico, 5,000 kilometers. He ran that's long.
It's huge. If you include Baja, and it goes, like a bit like it's like obvious like Canada and the US, but it kind of goes like sideways a bit.
Yeah.
Turns and it's a huge country. So when I got to Panama, it's been 9 months at this point, because I was taking my time. I would stop for I stopped in Baja. So my friends came and joined me for 2 weeks. We surfed there, and I did a lot of surfing down the Central America.
Oh, okay.
People were inviting me. This is where it was getting really cool, because now my trip was gaining attraction. So people were inviting me to their hostels and stuff like that. So I got to spend a lot of time on the Central America coast.
Actually had some guests on the podcast at one point, and they that's kind of how they got to stay at a lot of hotels. Was they would do like drone shots or videos, and they would trade up, like, just.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's different. Like people were kind of figuring out who you were and
Yeah.
stuff, but like
I was getting invited.
Like people staying at nice hotels for.
Well, yeah. I mean, for
trading out some
people who can do
services.
content like that, I would say like give it a shot. Just like approach those places, and you
And
never
there's
know.
so many resorts and stuff along the way that you're gonna find some that haven't had bike tours go there and offer that kind of thing, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously for me, there was a bit of an exchange as well, just because as a favor, they were not asking for it, but I was producing the YouTube series, which eventually will be a documentary, and I was doing stories and stuff like that. So it was nice just to give back by doing a bit of exposure for them. So yeah, I got to Panama City, and that was June. And then decided, because you can either take a boat or fly to
'cause you
Colombia.
gotta skip the
There's the
Darien
Darien Gap there, And at this point, I'm like,
You didn't want to just get a little raft and do it yourself, or like
I met 2 guys who did that.
some people are nuts,
Crazy.
man.
Yeah. But after 9 months for me, I thought maybe it would be smart to go back home, because I had decided to take a flight to Colombia. But my hub broke at some point.
Okay.
400 kilometers from Panama. And so it got me to Panama City, but man, I needed to change the hub. Nothing I could have not found in Colombia. But the whole bike, man, like bottom bracket, changed,
It needed an update,
cassette,
right?
everything, like oil in the fork and brake pads, name it, new tires. And I'm like, I might as well go back for a few weeks in Quebec, because it's not like if I had told my sponsor like a year before that I was going to do that, It obviously for them, it's good that I bring exposure in Quebec as well. Like being here during the summertime is also key. So decided to go back and just show myself.
What'd you do while you were here? Like you did some little talks and stuff?
No, just riding around. But I did organize a conference as well, which, I got a bit of money. So that was nice as well. But just like showing up, it helped me out actually. Because at some point you don't want to be forgotten, even though my Instagram went from like 12,000 followers to like over 30,000 during the trip, getting attention on YouTube as well. But still, like physically being present here, I think it's also key. So I thought it was a good idea for me to come back. And there was a lot of other cyclists going back home for Christmas or having people join them.
No problem with having a little breather.
No. At some point, I'm like, who cares what people think, like.
Did you come back and say, hey, van life, can I borrow the van for?
Yeah, well, no, I actually went back to a house, which was actually very, very nice because, I went from van life.
In Granby as well?
No, just a lot of friends though.
Okay. Your family's in Laval area?
Yeah, exactly.
All my family's in Laval.
Suburban, yeah. So yeah, it was nice to have a house actually for a few weeks, because I've been living in a van for years, and then I'm going for a bike packing trip, kind of miss comfort, So that was nice. And then I flew to Colombia after 5 weeks with almost like what felt like a new bike. And then this is where I switched from the Artcal to Tailfin. This is where I wanted to shave weight, which I did. So I left.
Because you're going to go up to bigger mountains too, right? So like there's
Yeah.
bigger stuff coming.
Peru and yeah. So I went from 121 pound to 106. So I shaved like 15 pounds throughout the trip. So yeah, I had more like a more nimble bike. So the Arkel panniers I had were like 20 liters each.
Okay.
With the tail fin, I went for
including the front.
Yeah.
So you're
for
like
4 bags.
80 liters of.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's like 7 or 18 or something.
Okay.
They call it the Orca 35. So that's 17.5. Yeah, that's a 35. And it's funny because Tailfin says they're 22, but they feel smaller than the RKL.
Interesting.
But anyway.
And then
because they're more
narrow.
narrow.
The front, so you're shaving.
Then I went for 10 liters in the front instead. So this also, the more volume you have, the more you're going to take.
Yeah.
So this kind of like where I'm like, well, this is what I have.
You had everything with you. You did that in Canada?
Yeah.
So you had everything here. You could like leave stuff behind. And
I brought the bike back in a box like I did when I left, and flew back to Colombia. And then
that's right, because you were in Panama, so you had to fly anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the start of the second half.
Other than
man, I had like a coffee grinder that I brought, which was like, I
remember the sound of the touch.
400 grams.
Look at this guy.
Yeah. I was enjoying it, but man, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I was under the impression that it would be hard at some point to find ground coffee. But you can find it everywhere. I kept the milk frother though. to do latte. Yeah, it's a USB. It's so light. Okay. So light. I don't know. Like I had 5 t-shirts when I left. Ended up with 2. Like one for riding, one at night. Exactly.
Yeah.
A merino shirt. It's
is that Parmi? Is there the merino?
Yeah, Parmi. Yeah. Well, this is another thing. I went back also home to meet Parmi, which really helped. So this is where they started helping me.
At the point, right?
No, exactly. So I met them and we had a good conversation.
Tell us about. I know nothing about the company. They're from the fact that they sponsor you.
Yeah, they're from Mont-Tremblant, and it's high-end, stuff. Like, and the price does also reflect it. But it's a eco-friendly company. It has a cost, right?
They pay the children better. No, I'm sure.
Exactly. They wait till they're 12 to hire them instead of 7. But
it's a joke.
It's a joke. No, it's made in Portugal.
Okay.
So it's an eco-friendly factory. Yeah. They're really like close to details, and everything is high-end, like the material. And the idea with Parmi is like, how those outdoor company always usually have like their logos like super visible, like the North Face or whatever.
Yeah.
But the good thing about those company, like they make really nice technical gear. But it feels sometimes like you have to be dressed as you're going for a hike.
Yeah.
While Parmi, I'm dressed like that right now.
I love it. It has a logo, but it's small.
A bit of logo. So they have always a bit of a logo, but sometimes it's in the back.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little tag on the shirt type thing.
Yeah. And it just, but it's technical pants, like those pants I can do yoga with or, whatever. But I can still wear it casually. And that's the key with bikepacking. You have so very little that the clothes needs to have like it needs to be multifunctional, right?
Yeah, that was one of the things I told myself coming back to Canada, because like I work with another teacher who's like, man, he's dressed every day. He's dressed so well. Like Brian, if you listen to this, he'll have a blazer on or cardigans and like looks good. But I said, when I come back from Asia, where I had to wear button-up shirts, collars, ties, but I want stuff that I could just walk out of the classroom, jump on a bike, go for a ride or a hike.
Yeah, that's their philosophy.
Don't go to Canada where it's like, Canada, it's pretty, we have unions and stuff as teachers. So it's like, you have the right, like women, I see women wear yoga pants. And if they can wear yoga pants, I can wear like Under Armour slacks, whatever. I should be able to wear whatever I want to.
True.
So
yeah,
I don't go wear yoga pants, so that might just be awkward. But, and by yoga pants, I mean the tights.
No, exactly.
But yeah, so that's what that was my goal coming back, because like I want multifunctional stuff. I don't want to be dressed up having the iron pants and shirts and
And that was, the process of getting ready for the trip. That was a big part, like clothing. Like I had a hard time finding what I wanted, like super.
So do you ride with these pants?
You can ride with them. Yeah. So no, that was pretty nice having less clothes, but multifunctional. They don't smell because of the material. They dry super quick. And
going south too, like when you're going down and through the mountains, like you got to have a pair of pants that's at least one pair, right? Like in bike shorts and pants, and just a mix.
So I had like one pair of riding shorts.
Okay.
And also like on the first part, I had 2 pair of bibs, but bibs are bulky,
They're
right?
bulky, yeah. The pad stick space.
In Oregon, it was so humid. It was raining all the time. I could never get the bib dry. So I had rash.
Chafing and rashes, right?
Oh yeah, man, it was horrible. And I met this couple, Felix and Catherine, they're from Quebec, and I learned a lot from them. And they were riding with just underwear.
You rode with them for a while too.
Oh yeah,
right?
5 weeks. Yeah, they were amazing. And
you guys still in touch?
Still in touch, yeah. They went in Europe for like 5 months, I think, this summer. They're I don't know, at least some 5 weeks or 5 months, but something like that.
5 something.
So they did like 7,000 kilometers actually.
Okay,
huge trip in Europe.
Yeah,
they're amazing, and they're a couple.
Probably 5 months, maybe 5 weeks would be a good ride.
Oh yeah,
fast.
Yeah. So no, it would be probably more fun.
So yeah, they weren't wearing chamois anymore. Then,
right?
Just
underwear, and I've given it a shot one day, and it worked out. So I got rid of the bibs. I washed them and give it some mountain bike club, and but on the second half, I found those bike liners from Beneath. It's an underwear company.
Underwear? Yeah, I have a set. Yeah,
they're amazing, and so I was using their underwear. Exactly, the ball bag. Yeah, I was wearing their underwear already, and they had this bike liner. Like it's like $100, and it's like decent price.
Got on sale for like 60.
Oh, really? Wow!
Yeah, they had a huge sale.
Small. It's not bulky. It's a little chamois, but it was.
So what I really like? I was surprised was the 7 mesh one. It's a very thin pad. It's just like, it's meant to be that you could wear it to work and then just wear it.
Yeah.
Keep your underwear on. You don't have to change.
Exactly.
It's not going to provide a ton of padding, but I think it's perfect to get rid of that friction.
Yeah.
So far I've been pleased. I bought them because I was like, oh, I'm going to commute to work, so I could like between the Beneath, I'll try the 7 mesh, but actually on the e-bike, I'm like, I don't really need anything. I just ride with underwear and shorts and
without underwear. Oh, sorry, without chamois a lot now, just because I've done like 10,000 kilometers
what kind
without.
Of bike seat do you use? Anything special? Saddle?
I have a Specialized Expert saddles, which is amazing.
3D printed or something?
No, just a regular one, but it was to my size as well. Like I'm running at 130 for some reason. But yeah, that was part of the fit as well. Change the saddle, and it's super comfortable. So yeah, a little chamois there. Yeah, so 1 pair of shorts for riding, which was my only pair. The other pair of shorts I had was more like a bathing suit or a short I could ride, just wear at night. Yeah, 1 pair of
like a jogging short type, something really small.
It's like a bathing suit, basically. Okay, like a yoga short, just like a little short in a riding pant.
Yeah, you're French too, right? So it's shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Got to show those legs now. It's funny how the body changed, and now I got I lost some muscle mass at the top, but got those huge legs. I could go do some track now.
You know the Instagram guy, big legs, tiny arms?
No.
Oh, you gotta check this guy out. He's but his legs are ridiculously ripped, and like the tan lines are insane. It's so funny. It's funny. So let's say your big change came over in Canada before going to Colombia, right? And how noticeable was the?
Oh, you could feel just by when you're standing up on the bike going on an uphill. Just more navel.
Everything. Huh?
Huge difference. And even now, I could go a little like further down in terms of weight, because what happened is I had like a handlebar bag from Brooks, and it broke in Peru. And whatever stuff I had in there, I could fit it.
Was that like the hard shell one there? Like
with the flip clip, or I don't know what you call it, but it's like a clip.
Oh, it was a Brooks one. Sorry, I was thinking
Brooks. Yeah. I loved it, but it was weight on the handlebars, and I didn't realize. So I think I put a dry bag on the Old Man Mountain Bike divide there, and all the other stuff I could put it elsewhere on the bike. So that was also a huge difference. I felt more nimble there, and having this handlebar free. And once I got to Chile, I put some aero bars.
Oh, nice!
And that was awesome too.
Changed his life, man.
Oh, It's like 1 to 2 kilometers per hour faster.
And even if it's not like, it's just comfort, right? So like when you get tired, sometimes you're, just a lot of weight on your arms after hours, and you just switch it up, you lay down a bit, and you're like, pull out a book and read.
It's just amazing. And then it's like your cockpit. Everything is got my phone there, the Garmin, and we're skipping forward, but
Sure.
I also put those arrow bars on my gravel bike to cross Canada after.
Yeah.
And so I got those arrow. It's from Restrap. It's like the arrow bag. So it
I
fits.
have it too. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
the arrow. Yeah, I have it. The arrow race bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's the one. I think it's the arrow.
It's
race
got a
bag.
little harness and the 7-liter bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I put a different dry bag, like a 10-liter instead. And I managed to put all my sleeping system there.
Oh, nice.
So I got my sleeping bag, sleeping pad.
You fit a 10-liter in there?
Obviously, it's
a
like
little struggle, but
summer setup.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't my -7 sleeping bag. But everything fits in there. That was my sleeping system. Underneath now on the handlebar, if I had something, if I would go for another trip, I would also have the arrows. Like there's another harness you can put on the handlebars.
By Restrap as well? Or
By Restrap, yeah. And then it's my tent there.
Oh, yeah, because they have, I remember they had the 2 bags. They had one was for aero bars and one was for non.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I bought the MSR Uba Bikepacking
the 2-person
version, the 1-person,
it's a 1-person.
Just for light bikepacking. So everything fits on the handlebar. And this is how I could get rid of the front rack and just had the 4 packs from Tailfin, 10 liters there. So yeah, it's a nice setup. Having the arrow bars gives you more volume for storage.
So what was your route going down from Colombia? You went down to Ecuador and then Peru, or?
Yeah. So I did a bit of the Desierto de Tatacoma. It's like a bikepacking route, and then I did the Death Road. I think every country has his Death Road. I think
there's a few of them in South America, yeah.
Bolivia.
China too,
oh yeah, exactly. It wasn't like honestly, Death Roads for biking is just perfect. Yeah, I think it's a death road for cars maybe because you got those like what do you call this when the mountain like landslides. But for biking, it's just great. The roads are narrow. Gets me
off is like where you see cars.
Yeah,
like you see some of the videos of like stuff in China where. And Laos was bad too. I lived there for a bit, and in Cambodia, but 2 buses passing each other, like, and you're like, "This is something's going to crash. Something's going
insane.
down." Like,
I've seen a truck like backing down actually because there was a car coming, and it's just like, "Holy shit!" So
and they're backing down this like mountain road
because there's like a little part where they can actually fit 2 at some points, but I'm like, it's dangerous for cars for sure. But for biking, it's
on a
nice.
bike, like they see you and just squeeze by it type thing.
Yeah, it happened, but yeah, that was pretty nice, like a big climb, and yet then we got to Ecuador. Ecuador was kind of like I had apprehension because it was during the election, and 3 candidates were killed, literally shot.
Okay,
what happened with Ecuador? It's sad.
This is 2022,
23.
Right? 23?
Yeah, and even now to this day, I mean, they're having a huge problem right now. So it's
I had somebody on the podcast that was in Ecuador for a while back. It must have been before that, but they were like, "Yeah, I'm near the border to Peru. I just came in, but there's riots and the roads are blocked." And
I think recently some member of cartels got out of jail as well. Okay. So there's more corruption now in Ecuador. They're kind of like going what Colombia went through like 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because what happened is like you got, can we say cocaine on your podcast? Drugs coming from Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. And now the routes are now through Ecuador instead of like, so they're changing
old routes, like, because it used to be like Darien Gap and then or boats.
Well, I guess there's still some there, but I mean, there's a lot more routes going through Ecuador because they managed throughout the years to have infiltration through like police and military and politics, just people in place there for that we didn't really see coming for years. So now there's a lot more corruption, but it's hard when this been going on for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, so like people are in place now, and now so a lot more routes, a lot more drugs are going through Ecuador.
You say our people, are you connected?
No, but this is what I've been told. I slept in Cuenca for like a week, so I was lucky enough. On my way down, there was a lot of Da Vinci distributor in those countries.
cool.
So I had
Okay.
one in Ecuador, one in Peru,
And Da Vinci
Chile.
like connected you to like get tune-ups and stuff, or you just stopped to stop and
No, they're just a distributor.
okay.
So they were just saying, hey, you can go see Diego in Peru or Jorge
cool.
in Chile. And they all happened to host me, actually. So I would stay in their house. So that was amazing.
It's a great way to get advice too on the country, like where
Yeah.
to go, where not to go.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
get out for some rides.
Yeah. That was cool. And so, yeah, that's why I kind of know what was going on.
What's the
in
mountain bike
Ecuador.
scene like down there? Like, is it
Uh,
something that's growing? Like, because I know like it's not cheap. It's not a cheap
No.
sport, right? So you're in countries that don't have the same GDP.
It's definitely growing. Like, surprisingly, you see there's always like a specialized bike shops for
Mhm.
some reason there, which is a good sign usually,
Yeah.
You see high-end bikes, but it's not as developed as it is here. But
Okay.
Soto in Ecuador, the guy who hosted me, would go for mountain bike. He had like downhill trails and stuff. Sometimes it's not like official trails, it's like us maybe 15 years
Sure.
ago. Chile is developed though. Like
Yeah.
there's a few bike parks there, and they host like a enduro race,
Oh,
World
sweet.
Cup enduro
Okay.
race a few years ago.
I know
There's-
Malaysia when I was there, like it was pretty wild, like because their income was so low compared to like the
Yeah.
average Canadian income. But man, everybody had a nicer bike than me. Like,
Really?
I had a
Interesting.
quota. It was a nice Italian carbon fiber
Yeah.
bike, but then like I'd see people on like $10,000 bikes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you guys afford this? But it was easier to get loans and stuff in Malaysia if you're a local. And,
Yeah.
So
But no, the mountain bike scene is huge. Even in Bolivia, I had my friend Yannick that I met in Whistler like back in 2007. But because of Facebook, we've always been in touch. So it was funny just to write to those people like, hey, I'm coming. And every time I would write with those people, there was always part of me. I'm like, am I really going to make it there? It feels so far away. But then I had like a contact in my notepad, like, and then I would just like put the check, and I made it all the way down to the last contact I had was Jorge in Chile. Stayed there for 2 weeks, and it was super nice. I did some mountain biking there, actually.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then it was the push to Ushuaia, all right?
Yeah, the last push. So
Is it as windy as they say?
Yeah, there was one day that was really windy. Some days in Argentina was really windy as well. Like I got a few videos where it's just completely insane. Fortunately, in Argentina, I teamed up with Benson, a guy from the UK that I had met in California. He's like a rugby player, like 6'3", so the kind of guy
Perfect
that
wind
you want in
blocker.
front.
Yeah.
The wind blocker, it was amazing. But yeah, we would switch. It was terrible. But yeah, once in Patagonia, it was windy, but only maybe a couple days, of headwinds, so it wasn't too bad. And I had like one day that it was in my back. There was a row where I was like not pedaling. It was like I was doing like 45 kilometers per hour.
Beauty.
Amazing. It felt like an e-bike or a motorcycle.
Even
Actually,
not to pedal those.
just the sound of the wheel.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Oh, you get that carbon too with carbon hoops.
Yeah.
It's a little bit louder too.
Yeah, that was funny. So I left Santiago, where I was hosted by Jorge. Did a bit of like a few days on the road, and then I was sitting in a park, and I had my AirPods on, and it was the end of the day. So classic, I would get to the village, and then I would just look on my phone for a place to sleep, and then suddenly I hear Bon Velo, and I'm like, then I pause, and then I hear Dominick Menard, and then I turn. My friend GS is there, the guy who I did the Baja Divide with.
Oh,
my friend from Bromont, and I'm like, I couldn't understand what he was doing there. I'm like in the middle of Chile, and then he just shows up.
Yeah.
So he was with his
chasing you for the last 6 months.
yeah, no, exactly. So his girlfriend decided to take some vacation in Chile and decided to surprise me. But I had my, on Apple phones, you have this find my friends option.
Yeah.
So people can know where you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is how he found me. And apparently he was in Santiago for like a couple of days when I was there, but he wanted like the perfect moment to surprise me. So he was filming with his GoPro. His girlfriend was hidden in the park behind a tree filming the whole thing. My reaction is just priceless, man, because it's not one of those reactions where you're like, hey, GS, nice to see you. Like I'm completely like, I don't understand what's going on. I'm even like looking behind me, it's like, is this a joke? What's going on? So So I rode with my friend for a week, and then I hit the.
And what did his girlfriend do? Were they riding too? Or?
She was riding a little bit, but
Mm.
mostly like she would drive because she had to work.
Okay.
So basically, we put the panniers. I put my panniers in the cars. I had for a week like a supported crew. That was pretty nice. GS being there, we did some hotels and so nice hotels. So it's pretty cool. And then we said goodbye, and this is where I got onto the Carretera Austral, the famous route, man. 1,300
is it
kilometers.
As awesome as they say?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an easy one. First half is mostly paved.
Okay.
But you feel like you're getting deep into Patagonia, like the more you ride, and then suddenly it's the gravel.
Like instead of like hitting Ushuaia, are there off branches you could go to other places, or is it just kind of like one road, one direction?
Well, the thing is, like once you get, let's say, to Argentina, once you get to Mendoza, where I spent Christmas with Benson, the guy from the UK, and a bunch of other cyclists too. Because that's
were you with somebody a biking Viking of some sort?
Yeah, biking Viking.
Okay,
that's the guy.
The only biking Viking I know is Marielle, who was on the podcast like 6 years ago.
Oh yeah,
and then I saw yours and I was like, "There's another biking Viking."
This is a really nice guy, man.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. Like he has to be in my top 5. You know, like the kind of guy where we would ride the same kind of days. Because that's a thing with when you meet
whether
people,
or not you match
it's
up,
just
right?
tough. Yeah. Like budget wise, distance wise, the pace, and we were on the same part. So
that's why this
really
was
nice.
Created, because I was like, oh, how often do you meet cyclists touring? You know, like you might meet the odd one, but a lot of times you're passing other directions.
Yeah.
You ride for a day and then you're separated, or even an hour or 10 minutes, you know? Like,
yeah. You would have great stories for you, man. You should interview him. Because he started in Alaska and never went back home. So he did the whole thing. I think his mother came at some point. So he got sick in Peru. And so, there's good stories. Yeah, for sure. And he's a cool guy. And I wish him luck. He wants to pursue more stuff like that. So like would love that exposure for sure. So
New Year's, right?
In Mendoza at
Christmas.
So what happened is like Argentina and Chile is like a slice of pizza, right?
Yeah.
So all the cyclists that were kind of all over the place at some point, all kind of merges. Converged. So spend Christmas with maybe 13 other cyclists at this point. It was like California when I started. When you see all those other cyclists. But at this point, there's a choice. So a lot of people go south to Bariloche, or like me, they go back over the Andes one more time, and then you go to Santiago. And then from there, you can hit the Carretera Austral from the start. Well, if you go through Mendoza and then south, then you might miss the first part. I know you can always merge later, but Argentina is cheaper. And so all the cyclists.
Chile is more expensive than Argentina.
Yeah, Chile is expensive. Yeah. Like it's like here. The cost of living, I was really surprised.
I have a couple of students from Chile last year. They both graduated, but they were like, "Oh, don't go to Chile. It's too dangerous." And I'm like, "Girls, I'm sure it's."
Oh my god!
You know, I mean, if you grew up there and you hear the news stories, I mean, it'd be the same as saying to somebody, "Don't go to Toronto because there's shootings every day." Like, it doesn't mean it's a really dangerous city. It's just means don't be involved in gangs.
I was part of me was a bit tired to hear this because I heard it all the time.
Yeah.
Like then even Mexico, like the next village is always dangerous.
I think Ryan Van Duzer said it best though, because he would say like, if the grandma says the next village is dangerous, you can ignore her. But if she says this village is dangerous, listen to her.
You know? Oh, in the same village?
Yeah.
The actual village?
The old lady says that this is a dangerous place, then you listen. If it's like the next place, it's just.
They always say that.
Ignore it.
I thought I was done with this until somebody said, "Oh, Chile, it's dangerous." I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go again." But it wasn't dangerous. And then, all the other cyclists stick to the Argentina side. So I went to Santiago by myself for New Year. Actually, I got there for New Year, and then kept going. Met GS for a week. Started the Carretera Austral, and then eventually. You get deeper in Patagonia and it's just gorgeous and like the gravel road. And then you take ferries to go from one place to another. And then you end up in Villa O'Higgins, which is the end of the Carretera.
O'Higgins,
O'Higgins,
it's like, sounds Irish.
Yeah, it has to be some kind of roots there. But then, it's the end of the road. So cars have to go back somehow. I don't know how they do it, but they have to turn around, I guess. But for cyclists or people that are trekking, hiking, you take a boat. You have to wait for the right conditions though, but there's a boat there leaving every like 2 days if the lake allows it, because it gets like really bumpy and yeah, it changes a lot. And then that's the weirdest like border crossing of my entire trip. It's actually a famous cross to do. So you go from Villa-O'Higgins to El Charlton, where there's like the famous Fitzroy. So you basically take a boat for 2 hours and a half. And then once there, you have 21 kilometers on some sort of island to do. And again, only cycling or hiking. And then it's just funny, in the middle of the forest, there's a Argentina. So you get to Argentina, but there's nothing.
There's no
you're in the forest.
Right?
Yeah. And it's just funny because Chile, the side of Chile.
They just have a stamp there. It's like stamp yourself.
No, it comes a little later. But still, it's just funny to see that sign, Bienvenidos to Argentina, and just in the middle of nowhere. And it's funny, once you get to Argentina, then it's a single track. So it goes from like a nice gravel kind of road. And then for some reason, Argentina, they're just like, fuck it, not doing a road here. So
if people keep walking it, they'll have a path. If they don't,
they'll
disappear.
Yeah, no, it's just so weird. But I was enjoying it because it was mountain biking.
Yeah.
So this is where I put the backpack on my back at this point, just to be more nimble, because there was a bit of a hiker bike. So you had to take your bike, go over rivers and lugs. And
sweet.
It's
like a great way to end to get down to the end of the adventure.
Oh yeah,
right?
It was one of the most amazing day I had. And I'm actually doing episode 22, the final, and it's actually in this episode that we're going to see that traverse. And then you get to the end, and then you get the Argentina stamp. You take another boat, and then you have another 35 kilometers to El Charlton, and this is where you go through and you see the Fitzroy. And I had the chance. It was a beautiful day, clear sky.
Fitzroy?
Fitzroy is the symbol of Patagonia.
Okay.
So Patagonia, like the company, the mountain you see.
Oh, that's that mountain.
It's the Fitzroy, the three towers. Yeah. So I got there, and it was a long day. I had left at like 7 a.m. At this point. Maybe it was because it gets dark late there. That's the beauty.
Right,
of
now
it.
you're
It's
going into
long days.
If it's summer.
If it's summer, yeah. But then I see the Fitzroy with the nice sunset. So I stayed there for a while, because for me it was like, shit, I really
this is the accomplishment.
I did that trip. Yeah. So yeah, that was very emotional when I saw that mountain and the sun setting at the back, and it was just a perfect day. And then for the rest, you still have maybe another 1,000 kilometer, I think, or something like this, to Ushuaia. And got to Ushuaia on February 20th.
So is this where, like, for that 1,000 kilometers, but there's roads, right?
There's roads.
So there's cars have to come from a different direction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably from Argentina or But but to go from Villa-O'Higgins to El Charlton, it's quite a little adventure. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, man, this is amazing.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm constantly trying to figure out. Like, I want to put an application into work for like a 2/3 or 3/4, where you work for the 2 years, and then you get paid for 3. So you get slightly less pay for 2 years to get some extra money on the third. Yeah. And but there's a lot of negotiations to be done inside with the wife.
For sure. Yeah. But it's such a nice route, and obviously after that, like, it's just, I feel like from the Fitzroy, El Charlton to Ushuaia was just like a kind of a bonus. You're closing the end, and it's funny. You get to Ushuaia, it's a nice little town, but obviously you take a picture with that sign, and because I was recording for YouTube, I had to set up my tripod in front of the sign, Ushuaia Fin del Mundo.
Yeah.
But it's funny because there was like a how do you say this? Like a chasse au trésor, like a hunt. Treasure hunt while I was there. And there was obviously something around that sign. So I had always people coming in, and then once I set up the tripod, people were in the back. So I was talking to my phone, but I had like people in the back looking at me, like waiting for me to be done.
There's very few people here at
No. There's so many, and then dogs barking. So I didn't have that moment I thought I would. Some guy actually
you should have left and come back later, like just ride 10 kilometers back.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because once I got to Ushuaia, I don't know where the sign was. So I had to go around town, and it wasn't like there's a finish line, you know? It wasn't the finish I had thought, like put the knee down and just like,
You know what
have
that
your
means? It
moment.
just means you're not done.
Well,
Go north.
yeah, in a way I wasn't done because then I went back to Chile and Colombia for more bikepacking and then decided to cross Canada. But I'm not done for
That's
sure.
really cool though. Like, I mean, like, you came back. I remember when we first reached out and we talked about the summit and you're like, man, like, can't give you all the details now, but I might be back.
Yeah.
I might not, but I won't know for another few weeks. I was like, hey man, no worries. But at the same time, I'm like, oh man, I'm really trying to get this together. And I like, kind of need to know. Like, but I was like, no, take your time. And like, I was already thinking of like a backup in case you couldn't make it. And but then you came back and
it's hard to know how you're going to feel once you get to the bottom, right? Some people, like their book I read, the guy never touched a bike again, So some people, some people are just done after they're worn out.
In the ocean, be like, I'm done.
I don't know. But for me, my love for bike just got bigger, and bikepacking as well, because in a way I'm just getting started, So I love this way of traveling. And that's why I went back to Chile after in Colombia to do some bit of bikepacking, because I finished a little earlier than I thought. And to get back to what you were saying is like, I was thinking to cross Canada at this point. So go back in May and then cross Canada. But instead I went back home just because I had a van sponsorship at some point waiting for me. That fell apart. Yeah, exactly. Came back earlier for that van sponsorship and it fell apart for some reason. And then this is where
go into it. No,
exactly. Well, I know you just didn't.
Just things don't work out sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then I was sitting at home, like, I need to cross Canada. I'm not going to let this van sponsorship like throughout my plan, And so in July, I flew to Victoria. That's funny though, because everybody says that the wind goes from west to east, right?
Only if you're lucky.
Only if you're lucky. Because I flew to Victoria because of that, which also makes sense. I like Victoria. I live there. I have a friend there. This is where I started the other trip. And then, and my goal was to do it with my gravel bike. It's fast, there's no reason for me to stop.
Hatchet is the gravel?
The Hatchet, yeah. Because I've crossed the country like at least 10 times through Canada. 27 times in total, like US and Canada. Driving. Yeah. So I know the countries. I don't have to stop. And my goal was just to make it as fast as possible with a lighter bike, because obviously I had like a awesome bike to do that to Victoria to Patagonia with, like, it was a mountain bike, it was a tank. I could go anywhere, but it's more bulky. Let's be honest. Bigger tires and everything. And I wanted to know what the feeling was without getting into endurance thing and like sleep 3 hours in a ditch.
Sure.
Just get decent sleep, but ride all day. And that's what I did. So basically started in Vancouver. Well, in Victoria, I went to see some friends, took the ferry. And once in Vancouver, I did like 23 days straight. And I averaged 215 kilometers per day.
215?
215,
nice.
Yeah. So, that was cool. It was like a bit of a challenge for me without...
What was your set? You had the tailpin bag and...
I had the Arrow pack in the back.
Yeah. Was that the one-piece one, or is that the one with the tap bag that comes on and off?
It comes on and off.
Yeah. I think it called it.
Yeah. Very nice setup. I love it. And then the restrap Arrow bags that I had in front, and 2 10 liters with the fork back on the fork. Oh. Still, yeah.
But on the back, you had just the trunk bag, yeah? You didn't have any side bags, nothing?
No. So, exactly. So that was nice, having a more like nimble bike, especially going off like on the over the Rockies and climbing. And so...
What started the Rockies or Ontario's nonstop rolling hills?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, once I got out of the Rockies, I thought I was going to get a tailwind through the prairies.
Yeah, right.
And on 23 days, I had 12 days of headwind.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Good thing you had aero bars.
Yeah. But man, it was so long. And
when I did my ride, I averaged 190, but I rode the mountains
to
Whitehorse and then all the way to Edmonton
or
Winnipeg. But I had that one awesome day in the prairies where I think I did 10 hours, hit 300 kilometers.
Oh my God,
it was sub 10 hours. So like the goal was I was on my aero bars. I'm like, I wonder if I could do this under 10 hours, which means I'm averaging over 30.
Exactly. Wow.
And I hit it. And then I was like, I wonder if I can get 400. And I got to like 340 or 335. And I was like, I'm tired. Like, screw this, I'm done. And I just found a spot. And so it was like 3:43. But I'm like, if I would have pushed it, it could have been such an epic day. But it was pretty epic anyway. So it was like
nice. Yeah, I knew about some of the stats you did there.
Yeah.
Kyle told me about it, and I couldn't believe it
Bryce,
at
you
first
had a
though.
huge day too. I remember you posting that.
Yeah, 3:24. But I never got.
I wrote to you and I said, close, but
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I never got a full day like I thought I would.
It's
Like
huge.
like a perfect day, we call it, and bike touring, whatever, where you start in the morning with a headwind, with a tailwind. It's flat, and there's always places you can stop if you want to go a little further and further and further. Never got one of those days, but still managed like a few decent days when I could. And but yeah, Ontario is kind of dangerous because there's no shoulder, and it's hilly. Yeah, it's very hilly. And but yeah, from Vancouver to the border of Ontario, man, it's amazing. It's like having a cycle path for you, protected by, there's like they make holes in the ground, like for
the ridges or little bollards.
It vibrates. It's
rumble strip.
Rumble strip. So you're kind of protected by that, and it's kind of nice having the vans draft, past you, like the
air suck.
The air suck gives you a bit of a it breaks the wind if you're having one of those big long headwind day like I had. But I have to say they're really nice because most of the trucks were always going on the second line. And I was looking in my mirror. I'm like, oh, come by really close to me, please, so I can break the wind and enjoy the draft a bit more. But most of the trucks, man, are super nice.
When I did my randonneuring ride like this year, I was gonna go for another one, but then I had a medical thing I had to deal with. But I was on one road and this transport came by me and I just pulled in behind him.
Oh yeah.
And the other rider I was with later on, when he finally caught up to me, he's like, dude, that was amazing. How fast are you going? I'm like 75.
Oh, shit. Wow.
I was pedaling my ass off to get up to like just stay behind him, but it was so fun.
Nice. Yeah. So I did enjoy that. So yeah. So I closed those two trips with a little bit over 28,000 kilometers.
Nice.
So quite happy. And I don't know what's next. Let's see.
There was no desire to like do the bikepacking route across Canada, or was it you just want something to go more speed and
Well, it's just funny because I love mountain biking, but bikepacking routes I think you have to be prepared for it. Like, I mean, you need, because what happened when going from Victoria to Patagonia, your bike is heavy, right?
Yeah.
But I would love to go back, let's say, to do the Baja Divide and have like the minimum stuff I need,
right?
The proper sleeping bag for this kind of temperature, like to be very minimalist.
20,000 kilometers.
Yeah, exactly. So part of me at some point was, how we glorified suffering through like, videos or books and stuff like that. And at some point I'm like, I don't care at some point. I'm just going to do it for me. So that's why I did a bit more hotels and hostels than camping at some point because I could afford it. It was sometimes cheap, and at some point I just decided, you know what, I'm going to end this trip and I'll be healthy and I'm going to have fun. And, but yeah, sometimes I wish, let's say in Peru, there's a route that I skipped that maybe I should have done. And for the most part, I'm super happy with the routes I choose. Because this is what happened when you travel for so long, you have to accept that you're following a corridor, unless you hitchhike and start going left and right, which could be a nice way to travel as well.
But most people want to make at least be going in the direction of their ultimate goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at some point, it's hard to justify going for that 10-day bikepacking route where you have to be 4 days self-sufficient. And at some point when it's been over a year, like it's hard to justify those. And what happened with me is just like at some point I really wanted to get down, like it's like if I had like an inner compass, and as soon as I was going opposite direction or left or right, I didn't feel comfortable with it, but and then I would always tell myself, you know what, I can always come back if I want to too, but for the bikepacking route in Canada, it looks like it's big. Like, I don't know. There's a couple doing it, and it's 5 months now or something.
They've been out for a while.
Jeez, it's a long trip.
They were on the podcast before they started. I had hoped that they would stop here, but it just turned out that exact day they were coming through, my wife's friend was having a birthday party for her like 5-year-old, and I was heading off to see a buddy, and I was like, sorry guys, I'm not here.
Yeah. No, for now I want to make I want to tell my story through a documentary, conferences.
What's going on now? Let's
Yeah.
see.
This is what I'm going to do for now, like for documentary, conference, and this winter write a book. And maybe next trip, maybe Europe, Asia, or something like this. Or I don't know. I'm not tired for sure. I love, like I said, like my love for biking is just bigger now. And I've got support.
Central Asia, man.
Yeah.
Big mountains, big sky.
I love that.
Okay, got your name.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm excited for what's coming, what is coming. But just telling the story.
Yeah, you have a really cool sounding conference weekend coming up. I saw your post on it. Do you want to talk about it, or is it?
Well, I have some in the retraite or the retreat.
That's it. Yeah, sounds really cool.
Well, that's something I notice now. Like people, because of the trip I've done and YouTube, I feel like there's an opportunity to meet people, and also like I found like I think the idea of a retreat would be nice because it would be less people, more intimate, and also I would share my routine. I always start with yoga in the morning, and I'm lucky enough to have an ambassador deal with the Balnéa Spa in Bromont, so I take advantage of it, and I just I like the fact, that I'm doing things that are very stimulating, like biking, mountain biking, downhill mountain biking, which I still love a lot. But and also because of what I do, creating content, YouTube, Instagram, there's so many stimulation that I think we need to offer ourselves like a moment to just take a pause,
decompress,
deconnect. So, and I found this through yoga and going to the spa, because it's two places where you have to put your phone in the locker or whatever, and just for an hour, you're disconnected completely. So I enjoy those moments. And this is kind of what I wanted to share with people.
I've heard really nice things about that Balnéa one.
Oh yeah,
we have
super nice.
Nordic spa here, but I've heard that one has a lake.
Yeah, it's amazing. And just the cold and hot, right? I do it in the morning and shower at night. I always finish with like a 30-second or 1 minute of cold. It's good for blood circulation.
How often do you go to this place?
No, I mean, even at home when I take a shower, but I do go probably 3 times a week now.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's part of my ritual. And this is kind of through the retreat, what I wanted to give people. So we'll give it, it's like, give it a shot. Like I said, I'll just give it a shot. If it works, it works. Right now, there's nobody's subscribed, but nobody registered.
I was actually looking at it. I was like, you know what? This is a really great price for, even if you look at just 2 nights at a spa, right? Like, or it's like is it 2 nights? It was 2 nights, right?
2 nights. Yeah. So just 2 hotel, the price of 2 nights at a hotel will cost you what it will cost you for the retreat.
Yeah. It's very
well,
cool.
We'll see. The thing is, like, I announced it a bit late, maybe. So maybe for next year, I'll do this in advance, but I just wanted to give it a try this fall. And then there's 2 conferences in November and I didn't officially said that I was going to conference. Like I didn't put any like my website. I'm still working on some modifications, and I didn't announce yet that I was going to do conferences, but soon I will.
Well, I knew you were planning on something because you were telling me like I remember before the summit, you said, I'm trying to have this thing prepared for my conference in the fall. So I knew something was coming.
Exactly. Out, so I think it's the, once you come back from an adventure like that, it's just, if you're into it, obviously it's a really good way to monetize the trip, and maybe even,
and also reconcile like coming back to reality in a sense, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And then maybe you're into that cycle where you're like, okay, well, I've told this story, wrote a book, maybe I can go for another adventure and repeat the whole cycle again.
Awesome. Well, hey, you know what? I'm going to put a pause on this because I know that you have a gravel event to be at hour and 20 minutes from now.
Yeah, Gravel du Parc.
And so, awesome, man. It's 2 hours. Do you know that?
Geez, it didn't feel like 2 hours, but great.
Yeah, I could have gone for another hour or two, but I think we kind of brought it all full circle really well. Dominick, really great having you here. I'm glad you shot me the message and we made it work.
Physically in your new studio.
This is there's only been 2 or 3 people that have recorded in here, so
awesome. Well, it was a pleasure.
I still need to work on the background. I plan to get some like bike related like cloths. I can staple onto the pads and make it more cycly.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. You listened to the whole thing. Thank you. Amazing.
And so bye-bye and keep on pedaling.
Au revoir.